Before long, everyone was ready. Nelson brought 6 funeral priests, who would accompany Fang Hao to the trolls' town of the north. The task of guarding the territory was handed over to Njia. It just so happened that she was still in bed early in the morning, and it was a bit difficult to wake her up. The accompanying general was Demeter, whose strength as an orange hero was enough to protect Fang Hao's safety. Everything was ready. Fang Hao directly released the demon puppet and cast demon teleportation. The method of teleportation was not random and unlimited. It required confirming the teleportation location on the Lord's Book map. Locations that were not recorded could not be teleported to. After confirming Town of the North on the map, the puppet waved its arms forward, and a dark red magic light screen immediately appeared in front of it. Although it was the first time using it, there should be no problems. The teleportation gate lasted for 10 seconds, so Fang Hao immediately had Nelson, Demeter, and the others walk into the teleportation gate. After the few of them entered, Fang Hao and the puppet entered the light screen at the last moment. Vision restored. At this point, they had already appeared in the chieftain's hall of the Town of the North. Around the light screen, a large number of undead soldiers were gathered. It seemed that the sudden appearance of the light screen made everyone present very nervous. When Blackthorn recognized Fang Hao and Nelson, he immediately withdrew the soldiers. He stepped forward and bowed respectfully. Lord, Scholar Nelson, Lord Demeter. Everyone bowed one by one. There were still quite a few people in the hall at this time. Blackthorn, Black Sword, the female troll Sistra, and several trolls with dispirited expressions. Managing a city relied solely on Sistra, one troll, which was not enough. Therefore, among the surrendered trolls, some easily controllable trolls would also be selected to jointly manage the rest of the trolls. All right, Blackthorn, Black Sword, and Patty, your contributions are all significant, and you will all receive rewards when the time comes. Fang Hao did not directly mention the matter of the meat chunk, but first showed his attention to the military achievements of the few. Even if the loyalty of the skeleton heroes had reached 100%, rewarding them for their merits was still necessary. These were what Blackthorn and the others deserved, and the other trolls and orcs were also watching. Thank you, Lord. Everyone bowed. Fang Hao walked directly to the main seat, sat down, and asked, "How is the situation in the Town of the North?" As soon as he said this, the eyes of Blackthorn and the others fell on Sistra, who was standing aside. The female troll Sistra had changed a lot from before. Wearing a long dress made of leather and linen, standing at the forefront of the troll ranks, she already had the look of a leader. Sistra took a step forward, knelt down, and said, "Lord, the Town of the North has taken in a total of over 74,000 troll prisoners. According to the plan, 3 quarries and 2 mines will start work tomorrow, and the remaining mines will gradually resume production later. In the entire Bloody Mountain Range, only the 70,000 trolls in the Town of the North remained. More people had already died under the blades of the undead, becoming one of them in the conversion pool. These 70,000 surrendered trolls, although called residents of the city, were actually prisoners and slaves. The power of life and death was in the hands of Fang Hao and these people. Below, there were also 12 trolls who were selected to manage the city. Hearing Sistra and the humans above discussing themselves, the hearts of all the trolls instantly tightened. They knew that the humans sitting above were no longer the reserved food of the trolls, but the Lord who held their power of life and death. The entire hall instantly fell silent. The trolls were uneasy, and some of them, in their self-imagination, began to sweat profusely and their legs trembled unnaturally. Fang Hao nodded slightly, and the atmosphere also eased a lot. He did not need a city of only undead and death. The resumption of production and normal life for the trolls was something the Town of the North needed to do. Good, while resuming production, don't forget the order in the city. The previous customs of the trolls must all be abolished, and anyone who dares to use force to snatch women and food will be thrown directly into the conversion pool. Blackthorn, you should also supervise this," Fang Hao said in a deep voice. This was not an exaggeration by Fang Hao. The trolls lived a more barbaric and open life than the orcs. Snatching each other's women and food was based on who was stronger and who had more power. To establish a more stable order, Fang Hao had to break the troll's previous way of doing things. Yes, Lord, Blackthorn replied. Sistra also said, Don't worry, Lord, I will do well. Fang Hao responded. After asking about the affairs of the town of the north, Fang Hao continued to bring up the news Bolton had brought back. Blackthorn, you said that a living chunk of meat was found on Mount Chaos, right? Fang Hao looked at Blackthorn. Yes, Lord, that is the troll's temple, and the object enshrined inside is a chunk of meat that is still wriggling, and its size is as large as an adult bear. Blackthorn replied, Sistra, do you know what this meat chunk is? The troll temple enshrined what the trolls called the giant spirit god. Sistra pondered for a moment and replied softly, Lord, in the rumors within the tribe, the temple is where the giant spirit god sleeps. If there is only a chunk of meat inside, then it proves that this giant spirit god is truly a lie. No one had ever seen the real giant spirit god. Therefore, long ago, there was a saying among the trolls that the giant spirit god was just a lie. But the Bloodthroat tribe was brutal and powerful, and no one dared to openly question or verify this claim. Now, hearing Fang Hao mention that there was no sleeping giant spirit god in the temple, Sistra became even more certain that this was a lie. But Fang Hao didn't think so, because when he first discovered Lorana's heart, it was also separated from her body. Since Blackthorn mentioned that it had life characteristics, it was possible that it was an organ of some powerful creature. It was not ruled out that it was truly related to the giant spirit god. What about you? Fang Hao then asked the other trolls below. The trolls instantly became noisy, but the answers they gave were basically similar. They said that if there was no giant spirit god, then this matter was fabricated by the Bloodthroat tribe, just to collect more tribute from them. Seeing that he couldn't get any information, Fang Hao gave up on this idea. He said to Blackthorn, Prepare the bone dragon, and we'll go take a look together. Yes, Lord. Arriving at Mount Chaos, the bone dragon placed everyone in front of the temple gate on the mountainside. The troll's temple was actually built inside such a crude cave, which was still beyond Fang Hao's expectation. One should know that human temples, even if not as grand as palaces, were very clean and tidy, filled with various sacred atmospheres. And the construction scale and environment here were very poor. Under the guidance of Blackthorn, everyone entered the deepest part of the cave. He took out the key and opened the bronze door, and then saw the scene inside the stone chamber. This was indeed a huge chunk of meat, just like beef on a cutting board. It was just too large. The meat chunk pulsed rhythmically like a heart, and it should have life. Below the meat chunk was a circular altar. He had seen similar altars in the dragon burial cave last time. Lord, this is the meat chunk I mentioned, Blackthorn said. Fang Hao took out the demon puppet, controlled it to enter the stone chamber, and approached the meat chunk step by step. As he approached, the object's attributes also appeared in front of Fang Hao. Heart of the Storm. Category: Organ. Description: The prosperity of the race has long since faded away, and the scattered tribes can only pray to the sacred descendants of the Father God. Not much information was revealed. It seemed that this meat chunk was indeed a heart, but it was only a part of a heart. One can imagine how huge the original person was. And the owner of the heart was some sacred descendant. After checking the attributes and confirming that there was no danger, Fang Hao said to Nelson, who was standing beside him, Scholar Nelson, see if this meets the conditions for sealing the organ jar? Okay, Lord. After saying that, Nelson led 6 funeral priests into the stone chamber. After a round of inspection, they came out again. Lord, it is indeed the organ of a powerful creature. The sealing ritual will take some time to complete, probably around 5 days. Good. Fang Hao continued to say to Blackthorn, arrange for people to protect this place and ensure that no one can disturb Scholar Nelson's work. Yes, Lord. Blackthorn agreed and began to mobilize a large number of troops directly surrounding Mount Chaos. Neither land nor air units could disturb Nelson and the others performing the ritual. Leaving this place to Nelson, Fang Hao and the others returned to the town of the north. 5 p.m., Chieftain's Hall. Fang Hao sat in the main seat, and the hall below was already full of people. In addition to Blackthorn, Great Wall, and a few other heroes, there were also orcs who participated in the battle and served as scouts and messengers. This battle involved a total of 3.5 million troops. Therefore, many people from the orc tribes in the north were also dispatched, and those who came here were the leaders or representatives of the various orc tribes. According to tradition, when a war is won, there will be rewards. Fang Hao stood up, gave a brief opening speech, and then got straight to the point, commending the heroes and soldiers who performed exceptionally in this battle. Blackthorn, as the overall commander of this battle, you commanded well and your contribution is indispensable. You are rewarded with 10,000 war coins, and the territory will pay for a set of more refined equipment to be forged for you. Fang Hao said. Blackthorn, Black Sword, and others, although they were skeleton heroes. They possessed wisdom and the ability to think independently, and they would also spend money to buy the supplies they needed. Therefore, while promising to forge equipment, they were also rewarded with war coins. Thank you, Lord. Blackthorn thanked him respectfully, his tone not fluctuating much. However, in the troll ranks participating in this award ceremony, there was a considerable commotion. They simply couldn't believe their ears. They were directly rewarded with 10,000 war coins, which was already considered an astronomical figure. On the contrary, the orc ranks were relatively calm, looking at the somewhat restless trolls with the eyes of country bumpkins. In the last battle to attack Brilliant Moon Highlands, Fang Hao also rewarded Demeter with 10,000 war coins. At that time, the orcs' reaction was similar to that of the trolls. Seeing it for the second time now, they appeared much calmer. Silence. The female orc Sistra roared, and the entire hall became quiet again. Fang Hao continued to award Black Sword and Great Wall as deputy commanders of this battle. Your contributions are also indispensable. Each of you is rewarded with 5,000 war coins, and the territory will pay for equipment to be forged for the two of you. Black Sword was left on Mount Chaos, leading troops to protect Nelson and the several funeral priests. Only Great Wall stepped forward, his voice low as he said, "Thank you, Lord." After the heroes were rewarded, Fang Hao's gaze fell on the pigman Patty. Patty was the chief of the pigman tribe, and all the orcs in this battle were summoned by Patty. During the battle, Patty was also responsible for the transportation of supplies between the Bloody Fortress and the town of the north. This time, he had put in a lot of effort. Patty, Lord. Patty stepped forward. Unlike Blackthorn and others, she was someone who had signed a slave contract with Fang Hao, and her bow was even more respectful and humble. In this battle, the Pigman village did very well in auxiliary work. You are rewarded with 8,000 beast head gold and the totem scroll, Curse Thunder Totem. Patty's heart rejoiced, and he immediately thanked him loudly. Thank you, Lord. All the orcs looked enviously at Patty and the pigman. Fang Hao's separate reward had a very clear meaning, and it was likely that in the future, the scattered orc tribes would truly be led by the pigman village. The remaining orc villages that participated in this battle will all receive a reward of 5,000 beast head gold, and the villages will receive material support from the territory. For the remaining orcs, Fang Hao gave a unified reward. This time, because the number of participating orcs was too large, Fang Hao could only reward by village, not by individual. Otherwise, it would be difficult to distribute the rewards one by one. Thank you, Lord. All the orcs bowed in unison. According to the exchange rate of 5:1 for beast head gold and war coins. That was also 1,000 war coins. Although more people were involved, distributing it to the villages would also allow the villages to develop. Finally, Fang Hao's gaze fell on the female troll Sistra. Sistra was the first troll to surrender, and she also provided a lot of valuable information for this battle. Fang Hao could reward Sistra, but by doing so, he would also create the image of a traitor in the hearts of the trolls for Sistra. He still needed Sistra to manage these trolls for him. After thinking for a moment, his gaze fell on Sistra, and he said, Sistra, according to the agreement, you guaranteed the lives of these trolls, so you will not receive any rewards. However, if you manage well in the future, I will reward you separately. Sistra's expression paused, and she immediately understood Fang Hao's meaning. She quickly stood up, knelt down, and said, Thank you for your trust, Lord, and thank you for sparing our lives. Fang Hao nodded slightly. The other trolls, hearing their conversation, also understood the meaning within it. It seemed that their survival at the hands of the undead was due to some kind of deal Sistra had made with this lord, which was why they were not killed. The trolls who had previously been somewhat resistant to Sistra being a woman now had a change in their eyes. There was less indifference. The commendation ceremony ended, and the banquet began. Food and dishes were brought out, and everyone celebrated the victory of the battle, enjoying the sumptuous food. In the main seat, people came forward from time to flatter him, and Fang Hao also responded with a smile. At the same time, in a cave in the rocky forest of the Bloody Mountain Range, the farmers gathered around a bonfire, cooking food. In the depths of the cave, Su Yang took out the iron sword from his waist and carved a 15 on the wall. This was the 15th day they had been hiding in the cave, relying on the preparations made in advance and the exchange function of the Lord's book. They had managed to hold on until now. "Lord, the porridge is ready. You can eat," a farmer said. Su Yang walked over and sat down by the fire. "Lord, I went to the vicinity of the Bloodthroat tribe yesterday and saw that there are many fewer undead. I feel like we can plan to go out," another villager said, although some people suspected that the outside had been completely occupied by the undead. But Su Yang knew that there were more human cities outside. Otherwise, the other lords wouldn't be chatting so leisurely every day. Su Yang thought for a moment. "Okay, we'll go scout the way at dawn. If there's a chance, we'll all escape together." "Yes, Lord." After a few brief sentences, the few of them fell silent again, all lowering their heads to eat the food in their hands. At night, Fang Hao used demon teleportation to return to the territory. He lay lazily in the hot spring, while Eeyore gently massaged his shoulders next to him, relaxing his muscles and bones. Just as Fang Hao was enjoying the comfortable massage, the Lord's book suddenly received a private message. Fang Hao opened it and found that it was a private chat from Qiu Zhishang. He had been blacklisted by Fang Hao for trading and could not buy the items Fang Hao sold, but private messages could still be sent. Moreover, they could both see the chat messages in the channel. "Fang Hao, I am Qiu Zhishang, and I am now ordering you as an elder of the Sky Rock Alliance to immediately donate 10,000 green weapons, 10,000 sets of green equipment, and 100,000 units of food to the Alliance for free. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite." Fang Hao frowned slightly. Was this person out of his mind? Since the last incident with the clay tiles, Qiu Zhishang's reputation in the channel has completely tanked. His clay tiles were rejected by everyone in the channel, and no one would buy anything from him. Unexpectedly, Qiu Zhishang joined the Tianpeng Alliance and even became an elder. It seems that the people in the Tianpeng Alliance also needed clay tiles for upgrades, which is why they brought Qiu Zhishang in. But Fang Hao was puzzled. Even if Qiu Zhishang held a grudge against him, many people in the Tianpeng Alliance were on his blacklist. It was unlikely that he would be foolish enough to privately message him and say such unrealistic things. Opening his mouth and asking for tens of thousands of units of green equipment and hundreds of thousands of units of food. Was he out of his mind? Fang Hao didn't want to waste time on someone like Qiu Zhishang, so he didn't reply and directly closed the chat channel. He originally thought that this matter would just pass. But unexpectedly, after 10 minutes, the other party sent another message. "You're not afraid of us? Aren't you worried about your subsidiary territory? For example, that little girlfriend of yours named Dong Jiayue. As long as you provide the Alliance with equipment on time, the Tianpeng Alliance can give you an elder's status. If you don't know what's good for you, don't blame us for being impolite." Fang Hao frowned instantly when he saw the message from Qiu Zhishang. He immediately privately messaged Dong Jiayue to confirm if she was safe. Dong Jiayue quickly replied, saying that she hadn't noticed any danger on her side, but she had indeed encountered a neighboring lord recently, although nothing conflicting had happened. It seemed that Dong Jiayue didn't know she was being targeted. Fang Hao told Dong Jiayue about the Tianpeng Alliance and told her not to leave the city for the next 2 days and to be careful. Dong Jiayue said she understood. After instructing Dong Jiayue, Fang Hao also replied to Qiu Zhishang. "Qiu Zhishang, you don't have the guts. Did you Tianpeng tell you to say this? Tell him not to seek his own death." Looking at the message from the other party, Qiu Zhishang suddenly felt a chill down his spine. Fang Hao was indeed not easy to provoke and had actually killed people before. But on second thought, The other party didn't know the location of his territory, so there was nothing to be afraid of. And the people targeting Dong Jiayue were others in the alliance, so they wouldn't be able to find him. After confirming that he was not in danger, he immediately became arrogant again. Okay, very good. Oppose our alliance, and you will soon know the consequences. Fang Hao didn't continue to reply and directly closed the chat channel. The distance between Dong Jiayue and the main city was indeed a bit far. Safety and development indeed needed to be rearranged. But there was no rush. He would rearrange it tomorrow morning. After ending the private chat with Fang Hao, Qiu Zhishang immediately said to the person beside him, "Boss, what do we do next?" This Fang Hao isn't intimidated at all. It seems he's quite confident in his strength. Beside Qiu Zhishang was Yu Tianpeng, the leader of the Tianpeng alliance. Qiu Zhishang was just Yu Tianpeng's mouthpiece. This Fang Hao really doesn't know what's good for him. Yu Tianpeng's face also turned ugly. The Tianpeng alliance had been quite active in the area recently. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was the #1 alliance. No one dared to disrespect the Tianpeng alliance. But this Fang Hao's reply was not at all weak, and he didn't even put the Tianpeng alliance in his eyes. "Yes, boss, what do we do next?" Qiu Zhishang continued to ask. He was feeling nervous when he was talking to Fang Hao. If Yu Tianpeng wasn't watching, he wouldn't have dared to be so tough. Yu Tianpeng thought for a moment, and a fierce look flashed in his eyes. "Tomorrow, have Song Yu launch an attack on that Dong Jiayue and force Fang Hao to reveal the location of his territory." Everyone in the entire region knew that Fang Hao sold a large number of weapons, equipment, and daily necessities every day. Among them were many top-quality green equipment. Therefore, the grudges between the two sides were not enough for Yu Tianpeng to want to kill Fang Hao. But the wealth that Fang Hao possessed was enough to make Yu Tianpeng tempted. As long as he killed Fang Hao and took all of his resources into his own hands, then the Tianpeng alliance would not only be the #1 alliance, but his personal strength would also be the #1 in the region. "Okay, boss, I'll notify them immediately after I get back, and I won't disturb your rest," Qiu Zhishang continued. "Okay." Yu Tianpeng nodded and turned to walk into his room. Qiu Zhishang teleported back to his territory through the alliance building. After returning to his lord's mansion, he arranged for people to make dinner, and while eating, he began to contact member Song Yu. Song Yu had discovered Dong Jiayue's territory by chance. Dong Jiayue had repeatedly scolded those who framed Fang Hao in the regional channel. Everyone thought that the two knew each other and had a close relationship. Although Song Yu hadn't shown his face in the past few days, he had also arranged a large number of scouts to observe the situation near Dong Jiayue's territory, making plans for the attack. He had no grudges against Dong Jiayue or Fang Hao. But the Tianpeng alliance was developing rapidly now and was the #1 alliance in the region. He could gain a lot of benefits for the development of his territory by latching onto this thigh. Moreover, the alliance had also promised him that if this matter was successful, they would focus on supporting his territory, and he would also be promoted to a key member of the alliance. This was a condition that Song Yu couldn't refuse. Qiu Zhishang sent an attack message to Song Yu and quickly received a reply. "Okay, I've also arranged scouts these past few days. The other party doesn't have any special troops, so it shouldn't be a problem to destroy her." Qiu Zhishang replied, "Alliance leader Yu wants the location of Fang Hao's territory, which should also be near you." "This, won't I be in danger if it's near me?" Alliance leader Yu has already made arrangements. As long as you get the other party's location, he will arrange for other people to attack Fang Hao's territory. What are you worried about? "Oh, that's true. Then I'll activate the alliance building early tomorrow morning and attack when everyone is gathered." Okay. After a brief exchange, they had already formulated a complete plan targeting Fang Hao. The next day, early in the morning, Fang Hao had just woken up from his sleep when he received a series of private messages. Zhang Bin, Fu Lei, and several other lords who had traded with him. Without exception, they all told him to look at the regional channel. Fang Hao immediately opened the regional channel to check the messages. As soon as he entered, he saw someone say, "I don't know who's more powerful, Lord Fang Hao or the Tianpeng Alliance. I feel that Lord Fang Hao is more powerful. He sells so much equipment every day, he must have a lot of troops. Look carefully, the Tianpeng Alliance is attacking Dong Jiayue this time. Lord Fang Hao has a lot of troops, but Dong Jiayue may not have many. Who is Dong Jiayue? Didn't they say they were going to attack Lord Fang Hao? Hey, what are you asking so much about young people's affairs for? You just need to know that Dong Jiayue is Lord Fang Hao's subsidiary territory. I feel that Lord Fang Hao is in danger. The Tianpeng Alliance can gather a large number of people in a short period of time. I bet on the Tianpeng Alliance. I bet on Lord Fang Hao. The crowd in the regional channel was discussing enthusiastically, and Fang Hao followed the chat logs upwards. Only then did he find out what the source of the discussion was. The Tianpeng Alliance had posted a message on the regional channel early in the morning, claiming that Fang Hao's subsidiary territory, Dong Jiayue, had launched a sneak attack on their alliance member, Song Yu, and Song Yu had almost lost his life. After a series of verbal condemnations, the Sky Rock Alliance officially declared war on Fang Hao. Moreover, their first attack was targeted at Dong Jiayue. This news caused a heated discussion in the regional channel early in the morning. The duel between the #1 player in the region and the #1 alliance in the region could be said to be the biggest event among the transmigrators. Ding! At this moment, Dong Jiayue also sent a message. Brother Hao, I don't know that Song Yu at all, and I haven't attacked him, Dong Jiayue said. I know. It's just an excuse for them to show their strength in the channel without being criticized, Fang Hao said. The other party wasn't that stupid, and they knew to find an excuse for themselves. I heard that the Sky Rock Alliance is quite powerful. I might not be able to handle them, Dong Jiayue said directly. Thanks to Fang Hao's help, Dong Jiayue was managing 3 cities. However, her development direction wasn't military, so if the other party targeted her, she might not be able to resist. It's okay, I'm here. They won't be able to cause any trouble. But Brother Hao, the distance between our 2 places is a bit far. It's okay. Prepare yourself. I'll be right over. Okay. After hanging up the chat with Dong Jiayue, he didn't bother with other people's private chats. After a simple wash and breakfast, Fang Hao began to mobilize his forces. The duration of the teleportation gate was only 10 seconds, so the troops he brought needed to be elite rather than numerous. To ensure the safety of himself and Dong Jiayue, Fang Hao transferred 3 bone dragons, 6 Nisbets, and 13 skeleton trolls. In terms of heroes, Dimite Ganesha accompanied him, while Anja slept in and stayed to guard the territory. Everyone boarded the bone dragons. When the demon puppet summoned the teleportation gate, the 3 bone dragons immediately rushed towards the gate. The huge bone dragons' bodies began to change, as if they were being absorbed by the gate, disappearing into it. 10 seconds later, the 3 bone dragons drilled into the gate. The next second, they had already appeared in the center of Dong Jiayue's territory. The appearance of the huge bone dragons instantly caused chaos. The guards quickly gathered, and the working farmers directly dropped their work and fled back to their rooms in a panic. At this time, Dong Jiayue also rushed out, carrying her spear and a firelock on her back. She originally thought that Song Yu had already attacked, but when she went out, she saw Fang Hao and a large number of skeleton soldiers. The most stylish of them was the lizard man in golden armor. Brother Hao, why are you so fast? Why does that sound so strange? No, I mean, why did you come so quickly? It's just a teleportation spell. How is it? Has the other party not attacked yet? Fang Hao continued to ask. Dong Jiayue shook her head and said, I've arranged for people to keep an eye on them. The other party should still be preparing and hasn't sent out troops yet. Knowing the other party's intentions, Dong Jiayue would naturally not sit still and wait for death. She also arranged for people to keep an eye on the other party. If there were too many people on the other side, and Fang Hao couldn't get there in time, she would also take her people and retreat first, and then take back all the cities after Fang Hao's people arrived. Now that Fang Hao was here, she had no other worries and could just leave everything to Fang Hao. Well, now that we know the location of the other party's city, let's go directly there. There are still many people betting in the channel, so don't keep them waiting for too long. Dong Jiayue didn't quite understand what Fang Hao meant. A skeleton troll on the dragon's back jumped off, giving up a position. Come on up, let's go to the other party's territory, Fang Hao continued. Go directly? Otherwise, okay. Dong Jiayue replied, climbed onto the bone dragon, and sat on its back. Touching the bones on the back of the bone dragon, a hint of anticipation flashed in her eyes. Jiayue, lead the way, Fang Hao said. Okay, that way. Dong Jiayue pointed to the northwest direction. The bone dragon stomped its feet and soared directly into the sky, taking everyone towards the indicated direction. With the whistling wind in her ears, Dong Jiayue's face was full of excitement. This was much more exciting than a roller coaster. The journey that originally required 2 hours of walking was shortened to 10 minutes, and they could already see the city ahead. She gave Fang Hao a gesture to confirm that the city was Song Yu's city. Okay, go down. The 3 bone dragons swooped down directly. Inside the city, Song Yu was counting the troops that the alliance members had sent to support him. So many people, even with Tier 6 and Tier 7 special units. This made Song Yu's worries less. The scout had checked Dong Jiayue's forces, a few Tier 5 units, and more Tier 2 and Tier 3 ordinary human soldiers. Whether in terms of quantity or quality, they couldn't compare with his own. Moreover, even if Fang Hao set off now, even if he came by plane, he couldn't support them so quickly. As long as he captured Dong Jiayue's city, he would be a hero in this battle, and the alliance would deal with Fang Hao, and he would get the reward he wanted. Just as he was about to set off, he suddenly felt the sky darken. 3 huge creatures obscured the sky above his head. Before he could react, he saw these 3 huge creatures swooping down, spitting out black beams of light, sweeping through the front ranks of the army. Under Song Yu's gaze, the flesh of the thousands of soldiers supported by the alliance began to fall off, turning into skeletons amidst screams and wails. Immediately afterwards, the 3 dragon-shaped skeletons landed on the ground. Skeletal warriors jumped off their backs and began to hunt down the remaining soldiers everywhere. Song Yu stood there dumbfounded, watching the scene in front of him in a daze. When his mind slightly reacted, just as he was about to turn around and run away, he was kicked away, stumbling and rolling several times. When Song Yu saw who kicked him, his face instantly changed. Dong Jiayue, the target he was about to attack. Dong Jiayue, don't mess around, we can talk things out, Song Yu said loudly, sitting on the ground and moving backwards little by little. He had thought about how to deal with this good-looking woman if Dong Jiayue fell into his hands. But he never thought about what the consequences would be if he was defeated. Dong Jiayue didn't approach, and Dimite Ganesha stepped forward, picked him up like a chick, and threw him in front of Fang Hao. Do you know me? Fang Hao said. Song Yu shook his head slightly, but he already had a bad guess in his heart. My name is Fang Hao. I heard that your Sky Rock Alliance is looking for me. Song Yu's face suddenly changed, full of shock and disbelief. How could Fang Hao come so quickly? Even flying wouldn't be this fast. His eyes involuntarily looked at the 3 bone dragons behind him. He really has a plane. Upon hearing Fang Hao speak his name, Song Yu showed an expression of disbelief. Following the shock, his heart immediately tightened. Fang Hao had indeed come to help Dong Jiayue, and he had even arrived riding a bone dragon. A 10th tier bone dragon, and beside him, the orange 8th tier lizard man who was holding him. Damn it! How could Fang Hao possess such immense strength? If he had known Fang Hao was this formidable and arrived this quickly, he would never have agreed to this plan, not even if they made him an elder of the Sky Rock Alliance. He wouldn't dare provoke Fang Hao. But it was too late to say anything now. He had already chosen to stand against Fang Hao. Fang Hao, my lord, I was wrong. I was blind. It was all Qiu Zhishang who made me do it. I have no grudge against Miss Dong. Song Yu's face was pale, and he knelt on the ground, begging loudly for mercy. He clearly remembered that the person who provoked Fang Hao had their head chopped off. The photo was sent directly into the regional channel. Thousands of alliance troops who had gathered were wiped out, their corpses dragged by the skeleton soldiers and piled into a mountain of bodies in the open space. He was finished. The only thing he could do now was to beg Fang Hao not to kill him. Song Yu begged loudly, pleading tearfully for Fang Hao to spare him. But Fang Hao remained silent, showing no reaction. The Sky Rock Alliance's malice towards him had gone beyond simple verbal conflict. They had gathered forces to attack his affiliated city. If he hadn't had the strength or hadn't unlocked the demon teleportation skill, Dong Jiayue, a woman, would have fallen into their hands. and her fate would not have been hard to imagine. If conditions allowed, the Sky Rock Alliance would also have killed him without hesitation and seized all the resources within his territory. The victor is king, the loser is a bandit. There was nothing to beg for. Fang Hao continued to examine the alliance building, which was circulating quite mysteriously in the channel. It was a tower-like building with 4 large archways. He didn't see anything particularly special about it. Is this the alliance building? Can it teleport to Yu Tianping's side? Fang Hao asked Song Yu. Song Yu crawled and scrambled over, explaining from the side. It can, but the alliance buildings in each territory can be closed and opened. Only when the local building is open can alliance members provide support, and others who are not alliance members cannot pass through the building. This result disappointed Fang Hao a little. It was clearly unlikely to find the location of Yu Tianping's territory through the alliance building. Yu Tianping might not have enabled teleportation within his territory, and their identities also prevented them from using this teleportation device. Furthermore, he couldn't rule out that the building had some special features and that there might be danger when he tried to pass through. Giving up on using this building, Fang Hao continued to ask, "Do you know the location of Yu Tianping's territory?" "No, I don't know." Fang Hao frowned. Seeing Fang Hao frown, Song Yu was immediately startled and hastily explained, "I only just joined 2 days ago. The only person who contacted me was Elder Qiu Zhishang, and he was the one who assigned me this task." Seeing Song Yu's panicked look, he didn't seem to be lying. If he were truly a tough nut to crack, he might not have revealed Qiu Zhishang to him. "So, you know the location of Qiu Zhishang's territory?" Fang Hao continued to ask. I've been there. It was in his territory that Qiu Zhishang told me about this matter. I truly didn't have a plan to target you and Miss Dong. I shouldn't have, absolutely shouldn't have, been influenced by him." Slap. Slap. Song Yu was still crying loudly, but Daimeka gave him 2 slaps, making him shut up. An orange 8th-tier hero, even when holding back, was not someone he could withstand. Blood mixed with broken teeth splattered on the ground, and he rolled his eyes and fainted directly. "Bring me his lord's book," Fang Hao said. Daimeka bent down, took the lord's book from the opponent's waist, and handed it to Fang Hao. After devouring the opponent's lord's book, he occupied Song Yu's territory, and at the same time, the map on the opponent's lord's book was synchronized to Fang Hao's large map. Among them, in the southwest direction, there was a territory which seemed to be Qiu Zhishang's territory. He released the demon puppet and cast heal on Song Yu. After splashing a basin of cold water on him, Song Yu quickly woke up. The bleeding had stopped, but the teeth in his mouth were already gone. After waking up, he found that his lord's book had been devoured by Fang Hao. His face changed again. "Is this Qiu Zhishang's territory?" Fang Hao confirmed again. Song Yu hesitated slightly, but finally nodded. "Yes." "Good." After confirming it was correct, Fang Hao nodded. Swish. Daimeka directly swung his sword, instantly severing Song Yu's neck. The head rolled a few times, gurgling. With wide eyes, it stared disbelievingly at the headless body kneeling in place. After killing Song Yu, Dong Jiayue's soldiers also arrived soon after, following closely. They immediately took over the city. "All right, everyone get on the bone dragon," Fang Hao continued to order. Everyone reboarded the bone dragon, and the demon puppet once again released demon teleportation. Everyone entered the light curtain. Through the teleportation gate, Fang Hao and the others had already arrived at Qiu Zhishang's territory. Qiu Zhishang's territory was much better than Song Yu's. As an elder of the Alliance, he had also received support from the Alliance during this time. His territory developed very quickly, and with the support of Alliance members, he had already occupied 3 nearby territories, plundering a large amount of resources. Qiu Zhishang's life was also becoming increasingly comfortable. The appearance of 3 bone dragons loaded with skeleton soldiers instantly attracted the attention of the surrounding soldiers. As they approached with weapons in hand, they were immediately enveloped by the bone dragon's death breath, directly turning into piles of white bones. The skeleton warriors leaped off the dragon's backs and began to clear out the guards in the city. He ordered someone to capture a farmer, and Fang Hao asked coldly, "Where is your lord, Qiu Zhishang?" The farmer was so scared that he trembled all over, his voice shaking. The Lord. The Lord went to the pottery kiln. Where is the pottery kiln? To the west outside the city, the farmer said quickly. Releasing the farmer, Fang Hao said loudly to the people around him. Everyone, don't worry. I'm just here to discuss some things with your lord. As long as you wait here obediently and don't touch any weapons, I can guarantee that you won't be in any danger, understand? Understand, everyone said tremblingly. The soldiers who had attempted to resist and defend had all been eliminated. All that remained before him were these timid farmers. He had come specifically for Qiu Zhishang. There was no need to kill all these people. He arranged for skeleton soldiers to guard these people. He took the rest of the people and quickly headed towards the pottery kiln to the west outside the city. Soon, Fang Hao arrived at the location of the pottery kiln. Large areas of kilns were built here, and many workers were working diligently. Not far away, a middle-aged man surrounded by a crowd also noticed Fang Hao and his group. When he saw a large number of undead units approaching him, his face instantly changed. He didn't care about anything else and turned around to run back. Bang! With a loud bang from a firearm, Dong Jiayue shot him in the ankle. Qiu Zhishang fell to the ground, letting out screams of pain. So accurate. Fang Hao praised Dong Jiayue. Firearms, in fact, were not easy to use. Loading was slow, accuracy was low, but the advantage was their great power. As long as you shot accurately, you could kill opponents of a higher tier. The premise was that you had to shoot accurately. I wanted to fire a warning shot. I didn't mean to hit him, Dong Jiayue said helplessly. It seems he's done too many bad things. Even heaven isn't helping him. Fang Hao could only explain it this way. Qiu Zhishang's guards beside him were cleared away. Two skeleton trolls dragged Qiu Zhishang over like a dead dog and threw him in front of everyone. Who are you? I'm an elder of the Sky Rock Alliance. Don't mess around. I still have tens of thousands of troops in the city. If you dare to do anything, you won't get away with it either, Qiu Zhishang said loudly, clutching his ankle. Blood kept flowing out through his fingers. The intense pain caused Qiu Zhishang's face to twist, and he let out low groans while warning them. Qiu Zhishang, you just cursed me last night. You wouldn't have forgotten who I am so quickly, would you? Fang Hao looked at Qiu Zhishang and said with a smile. Qiu Zhishang's pupils contracted. You are Fang Hao? No, impossible. How could you come here? They had calculated that Fang Hao's territory should be near Dong Jiayue's. But Dong Jiayue's location and his own were separated by several regions. How could he possibly come here? Moreover, hadn't he arranged for Song Yu to kill Dong Jiayue? Could Song Yu be dead? How could it be so fast? Daimeka bent down and directly took off the opponent's lord's book. After devouring it, he also found the location of Yu Qianping's territory on the map. Fang Hao nodded and gave Daimeka a look. Swish, swish. Daimeka understood and directly swung his swords twice, severing Qiu Zhishang's arms. Blood spurted from the wounds, instantly dyeing Qiu Zhishang a blood-red color. Just as Qiu Zhishang was about to let out a more mournful scream, Daimeka swung his sword again, and the sword light sliced across his neck. A head detached from the body, fell to the ground, and rolled into the distance. It still stared with wide eyes, its gaze fixed on its city in the distance. Bury him nearby, and let's go into the city to rest, Fang Hao continued. The energy required for the demon puppet to release skills comes from the controller himself. After releasing demon teleportation twice in a row, it was also consuming Fang Hao's own mental power. Qiu Zhishang was buried nearby, and Fang Hao led everyone back into the city. Those villagers were still being guarded, gathered together and squatting in the open space. Fang Hao said, "This city has changed owners. If you are willing, you can continue to live here, and I will arrange a new city lord for you. If you are unwilling, you can also leave, and I will prepare the food you need for the journey." This place was different from Song Yu's city. It was relatively far from any affiliated territories. Song Yu's city could be handed over to Dong Jiayue to manage, but here, it was a certain distance from both Fang Hao and Dong Jiayue. A new lord would need to be arranged to come over later. Hearing Fang Hao's words, the villagers began to discuss in low voices. Qiu Zhishang was not a qualified lord. In the past, he had severely exploited the villagers under him. When producing pottery tiles, he had also set up a piece rate work model. The territory did not provide food supply. Everything depended on production piece rate for exchange. The more you produced in your work, the more food and daily necessities you would get. But it was often very difficult for a family to eat their fill. Now that Fang Hao had occupied this place, the undead he led still made the others worry. As soon as he finished speaking, many people proposed to leave. Fang Hao did not try to keep them. All right, Dong Jiayue, take a few people to distribute food to these people. The rest of you will rest today. We will open the granary and provide a full meal tonight and continue working tomorrow. From now on, this place will ensure that everyone has enough to eat and wear. As soon as these words were spoken, several of the people who were just about to leave immediately squatted back down. Evidently, they were willing to stay and see the situation regarding having enough to eat and wear. Okay, Dong Jiayue opened the warehouse and distributed food to the people who wanted to leave, and they left. The remaining people also received enough food, but they were all told to go back to their residences to eat, and were not allowed to come out unless there was a special reason. Fang Hao took out some roasted flatbreads and distributed them. While eating lunch, he checked the chat in the channel. What's going on? It's already noon. Why is there no news from either side? Holy crap, Dong Jiayue didn't get wiped out, did she? I think something must have happened to the Sky Rock Alliance people. Otherwise, the Sky Rock Alliance would have sent out news long ago. Heh, Song you just set off. With just one little girl, can she resist our alliance army? Exactly. Let alone that little girl, don't let us know the location of Fang Hao's territory. If we do, we'll flatten it and scatter his ashes. The Sky Rock Alliance people were arrogant, and the others didn't dare say much. They were afraid of taking the wrong side and being retaliated against by the Sky Rock Alliance people. Meanwhile, on the other side, Yu Tianpeng sat by the bed, his face looking a little grim. Last night, accompanied by two female lords from the Alliance, he had slept until now and had just gotten up. He had originally thought that after waking up, he would receive news of occupying Dong Jiayue's territory. But now, he hadn't received any news at all. Just now, he had privately messaged Qiu Zhishang and Song Yu. But the original private chat window had turned gray. The messages he sent also indicated that the two people did not exist. This made Yu Tianpeng's face even uglier. Even though he had great confidence in his alliance, a bad feeling arose in his heart. Why would these two people disappear? Unless they were dead. In the regional channel, everyone was still discussing enthusiastically, and his alliance members were even shouting that Fang Hao, the number one, was nothing in front of the Sky Rock Alliance. But he, the alliance leader, was now sweating profusely, and the hand holding the Lord's book couldn't stop trembling. He didn't even bother to brush his teeth or wash his face and rushed directly out of the Lord's mansion, starting to mobilize all his soldiers to surround the area tightly. He had a bad feeling that he had provoked someone he shouldn't have. After eating lunch, Fang Hao unscrewed another bottle of mental potion and drank it down. Ni, you stay here for now and temporarily manage this place. I will arrange for someone to replace you later, Fang Hao instructed. Furthermore, he recruited 200 human soldiers in the barracks to be at Ni's disposal. Ni belonged to the Undead Nisbet, a 10th tier unit. His deterrence was sufficient, but his management ability was lacking, so others would be arranged later to take over from Ni and manage this city. Yes, my lord. After dealing with the matters here, Fang Hao released demon teleportation again. He led his group into the light curtain. A dark red teleportation gate appeared in the center of Yu Tianpeng's territory. As Fang Hao's vision just recovered, he heard a deep roar. Shoot arrows, quickly shoot arrows. Swish, swish, swish. Yu Tianpeng was already prepared, and a large number of arrows poured out towards the location where the light curtain appeared. Yu Tianpeng's army had long been prepared. Fang Hao's ability to quickly eliminate Song Yu and Qiu Zhishang meant he likely possessed a teleportation method similar to the Alliance building. When the unfamiliar teleportation light screen appeared in front of the Lord's mansion, Yu Tianpeng immediately ordered his troops to surround it. As the first figure appeared, without even identifying them, he immediately ordered an attack. Dense arrows rained down on the light screen from all directions. The twang of bowstrings and the whoosh of arrows filled the air. Archers were a special unit in Yu Tianping's command, acquired from his subordinates. Storm crossbowmen, Tier 6. Storm crossbowmen possess an active skill, Storm Arrow, which imbues their arrows with wind damage and increases their speed. Each storm crossbowman was equipped with a blue crossbow. At such close range, with the power of the crossbows, he was confident they could kill the enemy in a single volley. After the volley, the crossbowmen began to reload their crossbows, knocking new bolts. Meanwhile, the light screen in the center had disappeared. When everyone saw who had appeared, they were all startled. They were 3 bone dragons covered in iron armor. White bone soldiers leaped from the backs of 2 of the bone dragons. The bone dragon in the middle lay on the ground, curled up completely, shielding Fang Hao and his companions in the center. It was fortunate that the bone dragon was equipped with dragon armor. Otherwise, with its body being hollow, it would have been difficult to protect Fang Hao and the others in the middle. Roar! The bone dragon unleashed a black beam of light, sweeping across the enemies surrounding it. The undead soldiers, wielding their battle axes, also charged towards the surrounding enemies. Even though the Tier 6 storm crossbowmen were Yu Tianping's elite troops. In Fang Hao's opinion, their tier and strength were only average. The Tier 6 storm crossbowmen's slow reloading speed became their weakness. Even if they weren't killed by the bone dragon's breath, they were being hunted down by the skeleton ogres and Nisbet. In an instant, the entire city was filled with wails and battle cries. Blood splattered on the ground, and everyone holding a weapon, except for the farmers who hadn't left their rooms, was killed. Bodies were dragged, leaving trails of blood, and piled up into a small hill in front of the Lord's mansion. Within half an hour, the soldiers outside were cleared out. As for Yu Tianping, seeing the unfavorable situation, he had already hidden inside the Lord's mansion. Inside the Lord's mansion, Yu Tianping leaned against the wall, watching the battle outside through a crack. Such a bloody and brutal scene made Yu Tianping's heart begin to panic. He was certain that the black-haired young man in the center was Fang Hao, but why did he have bone dragons and such powerful undead units? That golden-armored lizard man must also be a hero. Damn it, this kid really cheated. Otherwise, why would he have such powerful units? What kind of person did I provoke? It was clearly impossible to say he didn't regret it now. But it was too late to say anything. Looking at the situation outside, it was clear that the two sides had reached a point of no return. Soon, all the soldiers outside had been completely eliminated. The skeleton soldiers surrounded the Lord's mansion. Yu Tianping, I'm already here. What are you still hiding inside for? Why don't you come out and we can have a good talk? Fang Hao stood at the back of the formation and shouted loudly. The transmigrators here had no sense of martial ethics, and he also had to be careful of the other side using some ranged weapons to take him out. Fang Hao, what is there to talk about with you? Will you let me go? Yu Tianping shouted loudly. Inside the Lord's mansion, several storm crossbowmen were already prepared. They were just waiting for Fang Hao to come out from the back of the formation to shoot him dead. Let you go? Alliance leader Yu is so formidable, I wouldn't dare let you go. If I were to die by your hand then, it wouldn't be worth it. Fang Hao shook his head and said. Upon hearing that Fang Hao wouldn't let him go, Yu Tianping's heart sank even further. If the other party were really going to let him go, he might actually surrender directly and express his submission. But he understood Fang Hao's personality well. He wouldn't actively bully others, but he was equally merciless towards his enemies. Then there's nothing more to say. If you have the guts, come in and attack. I have plenty of ways to take you all down with me. I'll drag a few down with me even if I die. Yu Tianping shouted loudly. After shouting, he saw that the people outside were hesitating. He then opened his lord's book, searching for a way to leave. If he could receive an item that would allow him to teleport out, there would still be a glimmer of hope. Hearing Yu Tianping's continued arrogant shouting, Fang Hao felt a bit strange. Did the other party still have a hidden move? But who would set a trap in the house they lived in? The other party was very likely stalling for time. He directly said, "Attack." As soon as he finished speaking, the skeleton soldiers immediately launched their attack. The skeleton ogres charged at the forefront, followed by 19 Nisbets, striding towards the Lord's mansion. Demeter and the bone dragons remained by Fang Hao's side. For this kind of indoor combat, the current group was sufficient. Whoosh whoosh. The remaining soldiers inside the Lord's mansion began to counterattack, crossbow bolts whistling out from the windows, shooting towards the charging skeleton ogres. The crossbow bolts struck the undead's armor, making a metallic clanging sound. The chest plate of the skeleton ogre in the very front was even covered in arrow shafts, and it charged straight to the front door of the Lord's mansion, enduring the hits. Swinging the battle axe in its hand, it mercilessly hacked at the large door. After a few bangs, the sealed door was shattered, and the skeleton ogres and Nisbets charged directly into the building, engaging in chaotic slaughter. The sounds of battle spread from the first floor all the way to the top floor. As the screams faded, the battle also approached its end. The skeleton ogres began to carry out the bodies. Yu Tianpeng, covered in blood, and two female lords with pale faces, trembling with fear, were dragged out. Yu Tianpeng had multiple wounds on his body and looked somewhat dejected. Fang Hao, I'm not convinced. If you have the guts, let me go, and we'll fight again head-on. I don't believe I'll lose to you, Yu Tianpeng said through gritted teeth. Whether you believe it or not, how many people care? In this contest between you and me, you have already lost, Fang Hao said calmly. Then what do you want? You've already proven you've won. You don't need to kill me. Yu Tianpeng regretted it to death. If he hadn't coveted the large amount of equipment and resources Fang Hao had put up for sale and hadn't idly challenged Fang Hao, he would still be the leader of the Tianpeng alliance. He would have power and women. Moreover, as time went on, he would have more and more. But he, on the other hand, just had to provoke Fang Hao without thinking. Now everything he had was gone, and he might even lose his life. You've already attacked me. Do you think I'll still let you go? You can say your last words, Fang Hao continued. No, Fang Hao, you can't kill me. You said that in this world we are fellow countrymen and should help each other. I promise I will never provoke you again. You can't kill me. Yu Tianpeng endured the pain in his body and begged loudly. These injuries were nothing. There were many ways to heal himself. But if Fang Hao really killed him, then he would truly be dead, without any chance at all. The fear of death made him beg loudly. Fang Hao heard the other party's words and suddenly felt a little amused. He also didn't want to waste any more words with him. Demeter, do it. Make it quick. Yes, my lord. Yu Tianpeng's pupils constricted as he watched the lizard man beside him draw his long sword. He began to struggle like a madman. But how could his movements compare to Demeter's? With one swing of the blade, his head was instantly separated from his body. As his head fell, his body slowly went limp and collapsed directly onto the ground. Yu Tianpeng's head rolled to Fang Hao's feet, blood staining the ground a dark red, his expression still showing fear and pain. The once prominent leader of the First Alliance died just like that. Beside them, the other two female lords, their faces splattered with blood, let out piercing screams. But they quickly suppressed them. They huddled together, not daring to look up at the scene before them. Are you two with Yu Tianpeng? Fang Hao's gaze fell on the two of them. These two were brought out from Yu Tianpeng's Lord's mansion together, and the fact that they could enter the Lord's mansion meant their status was not ordinary. If they had a close relationship with Yu Tianpeng, Fang Hao would also cut off the roots. No, we are members of his alliance. After joining the Merchant Alliance, he forced us to abandon our own territories and live here with him, accompanying him, one of the women said in a low voice. Before transmigrating, the two of them were one a film star and the other a singer. Although they weren't hugely popular, their looks and figures were quite good in the female star circle. After coming to this world, everyone's living conditions were very difficult. Their figures and looks did not bring them any advantage in this world. Later, they joined Yu Tianpeng, but they didn't expect Yu Tianpeng to be even more decisive, directly devouring their lord's books and abandoning their territories. He made them stay forever, and the only thing they had to do was serve Yu Tianpeng. At this moment, the two women were crying like tearful figures, afraid that Fang Hao, this killing god, would also chop them down. Boss Fang Hao, we know you. Before, the development of our territories was all done by buying items from your side. We have no relationship with Yu Tianpeng. We only came here for a few days, the other woman also said. The two of them looked up, and Fang Hao also saw their faces clearly. He recognized both of them. They were indeed celebrities from their original world. Jiayue, I'll leave these two to you for now. If they make any small moves, just kill them directly, Fang Hao said after thinking for a moment. To be frank, these two only had the aura of being former celebrities. After seeing Lorana, and Rebecca, these celebrities were just SOSO, without much advantage. He would first leave them to Dong Jiayue, and if there was a use for them later, he would make other arrangements. After handling the matter of the two women, Fang Hao began to devour Yu Tianping's Lord's Book. Devourable Lord's Book, Level 2. Yu Tianping's Lord's Book turned into a ray of light and merged into Fang Hao's Lord's Book. Devour successful. Your Lord's Book is currently Level 6. Upgrade required 3/20. This time, Fang Hao devoured a total of 3 Lord's Books. Song Yu's Lord's Book was Level 1. Qiu Zhishang and Yu Tianping's Lord's Books were both Level 2. Qiu Zhishang had 2 other affiliated cities near his own city, while Yu Tianping, due to his status as alliance leader, did not expand in the manner of a lord. His Lord's Book was also Level 2, but he only developed his own city. Devouring the Lord's Books of the 3 of them allowed him to upgrade directly from a Level 5 Lord's Book to Level 6. Lord's Book upgraded to Level 6. March speed plus 4.5%, resource extraction plus 5.5%, unit attack power plus 1%, regional channel daily speaking limit plus 60. After upgrading, various attributes also increased. The number of channel messages had reached 60, and he couldn't even use them all every day. You have obtained decision-making power over Yu Tianping's territory. Occupy/abandon. Occupy. You have occupied this territory, and it has automatically become an affiliated city. You can set a proxy governor in the Lord's Book. This set of prompts was not the first time Fang Hao had seen it. He skillfully chose to occupy it. Now, this Level 10 city also became his affiliated city. Fang Hao was just about to go into the Lord's mansion to search for more loot. Demeter asked, "My lord, should we bury this body now?" Fang Hao would order the bodies of transmigrators to be buried nearby and would not throw them into the conversion field for conversion. No matter how much hatred there was before, after death, the previous grievances were all written off. Now, as they began to clean up the battlefield, Demeter wanted to bury Yu Tianping's body directly. "Wait a moment," Fang Hao said. He placed Yu Tianping's head and body together and took a photo using his Lord's Book. He sent it directly to the regional channel. Image, Yu Tianping is dead. This incident has come to an end. Everyone, continue to develop your territories with peace of mind. As soon as these words were spoken, the channel instantly fell silent. No one spoke, and even those arrogant alliance members all shut their mouths. Not a single person came out to refute this matter. It lasted for 3 minutes. Only then did someone tentatively say, "Is this alliance leader you? Does anyone recognize him? Does this still need identification?" If it wasn't Yu Tianping, those mad dogs from the Tianping alliance would have been barking long ago. Didn't you see that not a single person came out to say anything? Yeah, where are those people? They weren't all killed by Boss Fang Hao, were they? Too bloody. Boss Fang Hao must have a preference for decapitation. That Li Teng last time also had his head cut off. Beheading is the quickest execution method for death. If you want to torture the other party, you can perform waist chopping, trying to chop as low as possible. The other party will crawl forward in pain, and it will take a long time for them to die. Damn, the person upstairs must be from the Ministry of Justice. In the channel, everyone began to discuss. Those who had spoken up for the Tianping alliance all shut their mouths. The original alliance members, at the moment of Yu Tianping's death, were notified that the alliance was disbanded, and everyone realized the seriousness of the problem. They hid in their territories with trepidation, hoping that their previous remarks had not attracted Fang Hao's attention, thus provoking this killing god. After resolving all this, Fang Hao continued to check the blueprints unlocked after occupying the territory. Unlocked blueprints. Storm Crossbowman Training Ground Construction Blueprint. Blue. Lionheart Knight Order Camp Construction Blueprint. Purple. Doomstrike Crafting Blueprint. Blue. Courage Breastplate Crafting Blueprint. Blue. Guardian Bracers Crafting Blueprint. Blue. Occupying Yu Tianping's territory also unlocked a large number of blueprints and equipment. Yu Tianping, as an alliance leader, wasn't one for nothing. He had a few decent building blueprints. Storm Crossbowman Training Camp. Hardwood 2200, stone bricks 1200, thick tough leather 500, cast iron blocks 220, metal parts 200, traces of wind 1. Description: Storm Crossbowmen, full-time soldiers, serve as the standing army to resist enemy attacks, constantly striking down enemies in volleys of fire. Fang Hao had just seen the Storm Crossbowmen in action. They were Tier 6 units, and the bolts they shot had the enhancement of wind attribute, making them faster and more powerful. Among human units, they were already considered quite good. Fang Hao continued to look at the second blueprint, a purple cavalry blueprint. Lionheart Knight Camp. Hardwood 5200, stone bricks 3500, fine stone bricks 2200, thick tough leather 1500, cast iron blocks 800, metal parts 420, traces of battle 2. Description: Lionheart Knights, composed of the kingdom's most elite knights, hold high positions, have repeatedly performed remarkable deeds, carried the banner of knightly honor, and adhered to the kingdom's code of chivalry. The Lionheart Knight Camp was a purple building blueprint. Given Yu Tianping's strength, this blueprint was likely a purple blueprint rewarded by the system after he reached level 10. He was the first to reach level 10 and was rewarded with orange, while Yu Tianping was the second and received a purple reward, which made sense. He must have used up his building materials upgrading the Lord's Manor. The Lionheart Knight Camp had not been built. Even if it had been built this time and Lionheart Knights had been recruited, they still couldn't defeat Fang Hao. The Tier 10 Bone Dragon and Nesbit were already top-tier units, plus Demigia was also present. There was no suspense in killing Yu Tianping. After finishing viewing the two building blueprints, he continued to check the crafting blueprints. Strike of Misfortune, Hardwood 2, cast iron blocks 3, metal parts 5. Description: An ugly-looking crossbow with a powerful bowstring that can inflict great damage on enemies. The Strike of Misfortune was the weapon equipped by the Storm Crossbowman earlier. It was quite suitable for the Storm Crossbowman profession. Coincidentally, the skeleton hero Zhong Shi had attribute bonuses for commanding crossbow units. At that time, he could build a crossbow unit team for Zhong Shi. The last two remaining equipment pieces were just single blue items. They weren't as good as the set equipment in Fang Hao's hands. After viewing all the blueprint rewards, Fang Hao entered the Lord's Manor to see if there was any loot he needed. Checking from the first floor to the second floor, the decoration here in Yu Tianping's place was indeed good. The chandeliers, carpets, and furniture used were all finely crafted items. But for Fang Hao, who had already plundered several regional leaders' residences, these things were a bit too ordinary. After putting all the rare materials and gold and silver items from the warehouse into his storage space, he then walked directly out of the Lord's Hall. Outside the Lord's Manor, all the peasants were gathered, lowering their heads and not daring to look straight ahead. The peasants in the territory were divided into two types. One was recruited from civilian houses, which corresponded to Fang Hao's laborer skeletons. The other type was refugees who had joined. Yu Tianping's territory had developed well, and there were many refugees who had joined. Many people had already formed families and had children. This territory has been occupied by me, but you still have the right to choose freely. Those who are willing to stay can continue to live here and will have better treatment. I will not make things difficult for those who wish to leave, and I will provide enough water and food for you to travel to other cities. Fang Hao said loudly to the people below. The peasants fell into a brief period of confusion and discussion. A small portion of the people went to Dong Jiayue to collect food and water and walked out of the city, looking back every few steps. This wasn't because they were reluctant to leave, but rather because they were afraid Fang Hao would arrange for people to ambush them from behind. The remaining people stayed, and more of them were those who had formed families. They had children and homes. If they left this city, the women and children would have nowhere to live, and it would even be difficult for them to reach the next city. Seeing that more than half of the people remained, Fang Hao nodded slightly. All right, you can go back and rest. Tomorrow I will arrange a city lord for you, and they will be responsible for your daily life and assign you new tasks. The peasants dispersed, returning to their residences one after another, keeping their doors tightly shut as Fang Hao instructed, not daring to come out. After dealing with the peasants' matters, Fang Hao went to the barracks again and built the Greatsword Infantry Training Camp. Using the Hundredfold increase, he recruited 303 Greatsword Infantry and crafted matching equipment. These were the highest-tier infantry units Fang Hao currently possessed, and they would temporarily serve as the troops for defending the territory. After recruiting the infantry, he went to the Storm Archer training ground to recruit archers. When defending a city, ranged units still held a greater advantage. Storm Archer Training Ground. Category: Human Building. Recruitable: Storm Archer, Tier 6 unit. Storm Archer, Soul Crystal 6, Food 40. He adjusted the recruitment quantity to 5 and proceeded with the recruitment. Hundredfold increase triggered, recruited 505 Storm Archers. The light dispersed, and 505 Storm Archers appeared before Fang Hao. Storm Archer, Tier 6. Faction: Human. Racial traits: Living being, Human spirit, Learning. Skills: Storm Arrow, Limb Shattered. Fixed abilities: Intermediate Archery Mastery, Intermediate Crossbow Mastery. Storm Arrow, Active. Crossbow bolts gain an additional 5% wind attribute damage. Crossbow bolt speed plus 10%. Limb Shatter, Passive. Heavy strike on fragile parts of limbs has a high chance of causing limb breakage effect. Description: Storm Crossbowmen, full-time soldiers, serve as the standing army to resist enemy attacks, constantly striking down enemies in volleys of fire. Storm Crossbowmen possess the characteristics of human faction soldiers. They can equip the gear they are proficient with, and can also become familiar with a second piece of equipment for loadout through the learning trait. This is a characteristic of the human faction, being good at learning and thinking. The 505 Storm Crossbowmen stood neatly in front of Fang Hao. They were wearing linen clothing. The only special thing was that each person had a chicken feather stuck on the right side of their hat. They looked a bit like Native Americans. Lord, the 505 Storm Archers saluted in unison. All right, welcome to join. I need you to guard this city for the next couple of days, and then I will arrange for an administrator to come over. Fang Hao nodded and said, Yes, Lord, we obey your command. The Storm Crossbowmen continued. Next, Fang Hao crafted the archers' set armor and the Strike of Misfortune crossbow for them. After changing into their equipment, they all went up to the city walls and patrolled their posts. After dealing with the city defense soldiers, Fang Hao continued, Nesbit, you stay and guard here for now. I will arrange for someone to replace you later. Nesbit nodded. Yes, Lord. After dealing with everything, Fang Hao cast Demon Teleport again, and the few people returned directly to Dong Jiu's city through the teleportation array. Coming out of the teleportation gate, they had returned to Dong Jiu's territory. After all, it was a city managed by a girl. The streets were very clean, especially in front of the Lord's manor. There was a flower bed full of various strange flowers and plants, butterflies and bees, and it also attracted many birds with colorful feathers. He had also planted some flowers and plants in his own backyard, but because there were more undead, basically no birds dared to come in. Thank you, Brother Hao. If it weren't for you, this pure maiden would have fallen into the hands of those people, Dong Ji said with a smile. Among us, you're the most capable fighter. Even if I hadn't come, that kid named Song Yu probably wouldn't have been able to do anything to you. Fang Hao replied with a smile. Of course, this was just being polite. If it came to Dong Jiu personally taking the field, it also meant that not many of her subordinates were left alive. Song Yu himself wasn't much of a threat. The real danger was the Alliance Coalition army. Thousands of people were enough to destroy Dong Jiu's forces at that time. How could I be that amazing? On the contrary, Brother Hao, you're too fierce. You're not really the system's favorite son, are you, like others say? This morning, she was still worried about her safety and even planned to lead her people to withdraw from the city first. But she didn't expect that by the afternoon, the matter would already be resolved. Fang Hao not only killed Song Yu who attacked her, but also directly killed Yu Tianpeng, single-handedly dismantling the flourishing Tianpeng alliance. This kind of power was simply unbelievable. Don't talk nonsense, That's not true, Fang Hao said. The few people entered the city lord's manor, and after taking their seats, someone brought fruit wine. The fruit wine was brewed from the troll wine barrel Fang Hao gave her. It was easy to operate and the taste was also quite good. On the side, the two female celebrities stood obediently. They looked more like two servants waiting for orders. Since having the ability of subordinate city conversion, the identity of transmigrators and natives was no longer so important. For a city, who it is handed over to for management mainly depends on ability, not the identity of a transmigrator. Transmigrators with low ability who have already lost their territory are not much different from ordinary natives. Of course, not many natives are literate, which is an advantage for transmigrators. Dong Jiayue glanced at the two rather reserved women and said to a soldier nearby, "Take them to familiarize themselves with the environment in the city." "Yes, city lord." The soldier nodded and led the two women out of the city lord's manor. In the hall, besides the two servants, only Fang Hao, Dong Jiayue, and Demigia remained. "Jiayue, about the barren battlefield map you gave me last time, did you arrange for anyone to go there later?" Fang Hao continued to ask. Dong Jiayue was taken aback, not expecting him to suddenly mention this matter. The barren battlefield map was something she found in an ancient tomb. Due to her limited ability, and owing Fang Hao a great favor at the time, she gave this map to Fang Hao as a gift. 2 months later, she didn't expect Fang Hao to suddenly bring it up. "No, Brother Hao, you want to clear the barren battlefield?" Dong Jiayue asked curiously. Transmigrators were more likely to use some gaming terms for certain designated locations. For example, clearing dungeons, equipment attributes, ultimate equipment, all belong to gaming terms. It's like this. Not long ago, the army captured a temple and found a temple map inside, which happened to overlap with the barren battlefield map you gave me last time. I haven't had much to do these past few days, so I've been considering going to the barren battlefield to check it out. Fang Hao didn't hide anything and spoke directly. To enter the barren battlefield, he would need to use Dong Jiayue's place as a base. Naturally, he had to inform her in advance so she would be aware. Hearing Fang Hao's words, Dong Jiayue was silent for a moment, then continued, "It should be very dangerous there. The barren map describes that many people have died. It's all right, I'm not afraid of danger. My forces are quite sufficient. When the time comes, please make arrangements. I need a city to serve as a base for attacking the barren battlefield," Fang Hao said. "Oh, okay, I'll go arrange it right away," Dong Jiayue agreed directly. Dong Jiayue knew clearly in her heart that although this place seemed to be under her responsibility, everything actually belonged to Fang Hao. Discussing with her now was essentially just informing her. "All right, if there's nothing else, I'll head back first. I'll leave these skeleton trolls with you, and I'll arrange for more units to come later," Fang Hao continued. Before leaving, he also built a spring of life for Dong Jiayue. This would allow her to take baths regularly and also improve her physique. After arranging everything, when his mental power had mostly recovered, he cast Demon Teleport again, took Demigia and Nesbits into the teleportation gate, and returned to his territory. The next day, Zhongbin's city. Zhongbin's place had developed well and already had 10 subordinate villages. They were all primarily agricultural, producing large amounts of food. Regarding Fang Hao's sudden arrival, Zhongbin said while greeting him, "Boss, why didn't you say you were coming? I could have tidied things up here." Fang Hao didn't mind at all, walked straight into the city lord's manor and sat down. "What is there to tidy up?" Zhongbin chuckled foolishly and also sat down beside him. He continued, "Boss, is Miss Dong all right? Those people from Tianpeng were really too arrogant, bullying even a girl." Zhongbin, Dong Jiayue, and the three of them had teamed up for trial missions together. Having gone through some life and death challenges, their relationship was naturally better. "There's no danger now, and Tianpeng no longer exists," Fang Hao said calmly. "Boss, did you really kill Yu Tianpeng?" This time, when the Tianpeng alliance attacked Dong Jiayue, he knew Fang Hao would definitely help, but he didn't expect Fang Hao to directly kill Yu Tianpeng. He knew Fang Hao's forces, but there was still distance between each territory. This speed of shouting in the morning and being killed in the afternoon was a bit too fast. "There's nothing to be surprised about. I learned a teleportation skill and directly teleported there with my troops. Fang Hao didn't hide anything. Right. No wonder Yu Tianpeng was trading 1,000 units of rare resources for a teleportation scroll yesterday afternoon. He must have wanted to escape at that time, Zhang Bin continued. Fang Hao was taken aback. A teleportation scroll was indeed a good way to escape. At that time, Yu Tianpeng was indeed hiding in the Lord's Manor. That must have been when he was collecting teleportation scrolls in the channel. Fortunately, he directly ordered an attack and captured him before he received it. Otherwise, if he had teleported away, it would have been really difficult to catch him then. Oh right, Yu Tianpeng's place is a level 10 city. It has reached the stone fortress level. It just happens to be missing a city lord now. Do you want to go over? Fang Hao directly stated his purpose. For city management, Fang Hao indeed didn't have many good candidates. After thinking it over, Zhang Bin had known him for quite a while, so it might as well be given to Zhang Bin rather than someone else for the level 10 city. He originally thought Zhang Bin would readily agree. But at this moment, Zhang Bin hesitated. What's wrong? Reluctant to leave the city you built yourself? Fang Hao asked curiously. Zhang Bin's face suddenly turned red, and he stammered. It's not about me. I have to go back and tell my father-in-law. This sentence, on the contrary, made Fang Hao freeze. Huh? When did you get a father-in-law? Zhang Bin was the first crossing, transmigrator/ice guide person to become affiliated with his own city. Although it was a subordinate relationship, the two were also friends. Although he was a bit cautious and hesitant, his character was quite good. The title boss also spread from Zhang Bin, and later Fu Lei and Kong Yong also started calling him boss. He had originally planned to transfer him to the level 10 city, but he hadn't expected that Zhang Bin was already married here. This was unexpected for Fang Hao. Seeing Fang Hao's surprised expression, Zhang Bin's face turned red, and he scratched his head, answering, last week, Wyatt and I had a simple wedding. It was a small matter, so I didn't tell you, boss. Wyatt? Judging by the name, she should be a native. Oh, that's good too. Having someone to rely on here. Fang Hao didn't say much more. At this moment, a plainly dressed girl walked out from the side of the city lord's mansion, carrying a fruit plate and drinks. Zhang Bin immediately introduced, Boss, this is Wyatt. Wyatt, quickly say hello to boss. Hello, boss. Wyatt placed the fruit plate and water cups in front of Fang Hao and bowed. Wyatt had wheat-colored skin, a pretty face, and some freckles on her cheeks like a young girl, making her look young and lovely. Moreover, Fang Hao had some impression of this Wyatt. He had seen this girl before when Zhang Bin took him to visit the affiliated villages. At that time, he had felt that this girl liked Zhang Bin very much. Now, the two had actually gotten together. Well, Zhang Bin didn't mention it to me when you got married. This piece of gem jewelry will be a meeting gift for you. You'll have to take care of Zhang Bin's daily life more from now on. Fang Hao casually flipped his hand, and as if by magic, a gem necklace appeared and was placed on the table. This necklace was obtained from the treasure hoard of the giant dragon in the east. Although it wasn't an attribute item, the necklace was made of pure gold and had several thumb-sized gems. It could be said that it was a luxury item even among nobles. Seeing the glittering gold necklace in front of her, Wyatt looked at Zhang Bin with a hesitant expression. Zhang Bin was also a little hesitant. Boss, this isn't necessary, is it? At that time, we didn't plan to have any formal wedding. We just brought Wyatt over from the village. Take it, Fang Hao said with a slight smile. Zhang Bin didn't continue to insist and nodded slightly. Only then did Wyatt take the necklace, her face full of joy. Thank you, boss. No woman dislikes such gorgeous jewelry. And you're welcome. Then he nodded. After Wyatt bowed again, she directly withdrew. Boss, Wyatt is the youngest daughter in her family. Every few days, my father-in-law will come over to see his youngest daughter. Regarding the city transfer, I need to inform them. Zhang Bin continued to explain. It wasn't that Zhang Bin didn't want to go, but he needed to discuss it with Wyatt's family. After all, they were newly married, and Zhang Bin would have to leave for a farther place. They didn't have Fang Hao's ability to teleport, so it would be really difficult to come back. Moreover, the development of this town was also Zhang Bin's hard work. If another city lord took over, there would also be many problems. Fang Hao thought for a moment and finally gave up the idea of transferring Zhangbin in. Then I'll transfer someone else over. When the time comes, it will be the same if he arranges for someone else to go. Is that okay? Zhangbin said. You just continue to manage this area and expand agricultural production. There are more and more people who need to eat now. Fang Hao continued. Conquering the bloody mountain range could provide Fang Hao with more mineral resources. At the same time, Fang Hao also had to ensure that they could eat their fill. Otherwise, with the trolls' personalities, it would be easy for various problems to arise. Therefore, agricultural production still needed to be expanded. No problem, I'm already very professional in agriculture. If I could transmigrate back, I feel like I could teach at an agricultural university. Zhangbin patted his chest, looking full of confidence. Okay, then I'll leave it to you. Oh, by the way, boss, a cavalry merchant team came from the west not long ago to exchange goods and resources. I was thinking about whether to set up a commercial district in the city to make contact with the cities in the west. Zhangbin continued. Okay, you arrange it. When the time comes, if you need any goods, I'll arrange for someone to send them over. Okay, boss. Bloody Highlands. Su Yang led his men, carrying various supplies and items, and walked out of the cave. They had been hiding in the cave for a total of 17 days. Everyone was in rags and disheveled. Most of the weapons and equipment exchanged from Fang Hao had been sold in the channel and exchanged for food and survival supplies. They only had more than 10 long swords left in their hands, and everyone else's weapons had been replaced with iron axes. After leaving the cave, they walked along the edge of the mountain range. Just as they had observed, the battle between the trolls and the undead had ended. The undead army from before, it was unknown where they had been transferred. In any case, the road leading outside was already clear, and as long as they were a little more careful, they could leave this barren land. Soon, they had bypassed the former Bloodthroat tribe. They walked outwards along the only mountain path. Sir, it's going smoothly. We can finally get out, a farmer said happily. Hiding in the cave for 17 days, not daring to go out. Everyone was suffocated. If it weren't for the abundant food and water, their loyalty would have hit rock bottom long ago. Now, they finally saw hope. When we get out, we can go live in human cities and won't have to worry anymore. A smile also appeared on Su Yang's face. Finally getting rid of the trolls, and this place with only barren mountains and broken stones. Thanks to you, sir, otherwise we would have been eaten by those trolls. Another person said. All right, stop talking. Let's hurry up and try to get out of here before dark. Yes. Everyone stopped talking and quickened their pace. Su Yang checked the map and led everyone forward. After walking for a morning, they finally arrived at the edge location recorded on the map. However, they found that the originally clear road had an extra huge fortress, blocking everyone's path. And on the walls of the fortress, they could see skeleton soldiers standing guard. Damn, what's going on? The undead built a fortress here. Su Yang and the others immediately hid, their bodies pressed tightly against the mountain wall, and cursed in a low voice. According to the information they had obtained before, there shouldn't be any fortress here, so why did a fortress appear? Sir, what should we do? The farmer asked. Go, let's go back and take the Cold Wind mountain range route. Su Yang gritted his teeth and said again. Okay. Everyone picked up their belongings and returned in the direction they had come from. But just as they turned around and hadn't gone far, they heard dense footsteps and the sound of wheels crushing stones coming from the front. Su Yang's face changed. There was a fortress behind and another group of people in front. Had they been hiding for so long in vain? And would they ultimately die here? Yes, sir. What should we do? The farmer asked anxiously. Pick up your weapons. Everyone prepare for the final battle. Su Yang gritted his teeth and said. On both sides were steep rock walls that were impossible to climb. With no retreat route, they could only pick up their weapons to bolster their courage. Soon, the dense footsteps got closer and closer and became noisier. It could be heard that the number of people on the move was large and their speed was also fast. Rounding the mountain blocking the front, an army composed of white bones appeared in the sight of Su Yang and the others. At this moment, with the fortress behind and the undead army in front, they were caught in the middle. Su Yang and the others tightened their grip on their weapons. Prepare to fight them. Kill one and earn one. Su Yang shouted loudly. This undead team also discovered the humans with weapons in the middle of the road. Swords were drawn, producing a series of harsh, grinding noises. They surrounded all the humans in front. Just as Su Yang was about to order an attack, he saw a skeleton horse carrying a pigman with pink skin walk over. The pigman had gem earrings on her large ears and a golden pendant around her neck. Aside from her somewhat unappealing appearance, her attire actually resembled that of a woman of noble birth. Su Yang and the others widened their eyes, staring blankly at the pig-headed person in the carriage. What was going on? Why was there a pig-headed person in the undead army, and she was even riding a horse, seemingly in a higher position? The pig-headed person was none other than Patty, who was responsible for withdrawing the troops according to the instructions. Her task today was to transfer 500,000 undead troops outwards, and then have other heroes transfer this batch of heroes to the cities on the west side. This was in preparation for attacking a place called the Barren Battlefield. However, she hadn't expected to be blocked by this group of humans when approaching the fortress. Thinking about it again, she felt something was wrong. How did these humans get into the Bloody Mountain range through the fortress? Who are you? Why are you here? Patty asked. Seeing that the beast man was willing to communicate, a glimmer of hope appeared in Su Yang's eyes, and he immediately said, "We have no ill intentions. We just want to pass through the fortress and leave this mountain range." You're lying. What is your purpose for entering the Bloody Mountain range? This is your last chance. Patty's voice instantly turned cold. The undead army had cleansed the entire Bloody Mountain range. All the troll villages were razed to the ground in front of the undead army. If there were really a few humans like this, they would have been discovered long ago, or even killed directly. Moreover, how could humans possibly survive here? Therefore, they could only be people who came from outside, not people who were trying to leave from here. Could it be that the bloody fortress had a hidden path that allowed these few humans to sneak in? Patty's warning had just ended. The surrounding undead warriors stepped forward 2 more steps. They were in a stance ready to attack at any time. Seeing that the other party had misunderstood him, Su Yang's eyes darted around, and he immediately said, "This lord's insight is sharp. We are human fur traders. We originally intended to come in and exchange some goods with the trolls." He carefully glanced at the pig-headed person on the horse's back and continued, "But it seems there's some problem with the trolls here, so we are planning to leave this place, and we're just met by your team. But please rest assured, we didn't do anything and didn't take anything." Su Yang loudly promised, intending to use another method to have the pig-headed person in front of him send him away from here. Patty looked at the few people and fell silent. The story made sense, but there were still many doubts. Looking at the ingratiating smile on the face of the leading human, she always felt that the other party was deceiving her. She directly said, "I can take you out, but whether or not to let you leave still needs our lord to decide. This is not necessary, is it? We are just some fur traders. We didn't gain anything from this trip and need to hurry back." Su Yang continued, "It won't take long, and you don't want me to have the army forcefully detain you, do you?" Patty continued. Su Yang knew he had no choice, but fortunately, the other party was still willing to communicate. At least they wouldn't have to fight the undead to the death right away. After thinking for a moment, he threw the weapon in his hand on the ground and continued to say loudly, "This lord, we have no ill intentions. We hope you won't make things difficult for us." The undead soldiers immediately stepped forward and guarded all the humans. Seeing that the matter was resolved, Patty lowered the carriage door again. The army continued to advance and walked out of the Bloody Mountain range. Looking at the undead leading them out of the mountain range, Su Yang and the others were all happy. The farmers were even more impressed with their lord. He actually used the undead to pass through the fortress that had been trapping them in just a few words. Next, as long as they solidified their identity as fur traders, they could leave here and go directly to a human city. But when the few people were escorted by the undead and passed through the bloody fortress in an instant, the originally relaxed expressions of the few people immediately became full of fear. On the other side of the fortress was a neat and orderly, well-equipped, dense, and endless undead army. Between the ranks, beast men were running quickly, conveying various messages. Originally, the undead army stationed near the Bloodthroat tribe had already made them tremble in fear for several days. At this moment, seeing the scene in front of them, their legs immediately began to go weak. The few people were dragged by the undead soldiers and directly locked into iron cages nearby. Except for some food being delivered at noon, no one had paid attention to them. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Fang Hao rode the bone dragon and landed directly at the bloody fortress. In the fortress's command hall, he reassigned tasks to everyone. Black Sword, Giant Wall, and Heavy Arrow would lead 2 million troops and head to Dongjue's city according to the map. This was in preparation for the subsequent attack on the barren battlefield map. Fang Hao was still very curious about the identity of that giant heart. Could it be that gods could also die? If gods could die, then what would they be called gods? Fang Hao thought to himself as he walked out of the command hall. Just as he was about to board the bone dragon to leave, he heard a shout from the side. "Boss Fang Hao, is that you?" He looked in the direction of the sound. He saw several large metal cages not far away. In the iron cages, several disheveled humans were locked up. The fortress didn't have a dungeon, and it had never held prisoners before. When he saw the humans being held in iron cages and the other party calling out his name, he was slightly startled. What's going on? Fang Hao didn't recognize the other party's identity and asked Black Sword, who was nearby. Patty brought them back this morning. I heard they were people who sneaked into the Bloody Mountain range and were caught on the road. We haven't had time to interrogate them yet. Black Sword explained in a low voice. Sneaked into the Bloody Mountain range. And they said they were fur traders and snuck in. The two talked in low voices. The people in the iron cage not far away couldn't sit still anymore and shouted loudly. "Boss Fang Hao, it's me, Su Yang. I'm Su Yang." Su Yang and Fang Hao had met at the Merchant Alliance's headquarters. Although more than 2 months had passed, he could still recognize the other party at a glance. Although Su Yang was curious as to why Fang Hao knew these undead, he couldn't care less at this moment. He could only place his hopes on Fang Hao. Otherwise, he might be killed directly by the undead. Therefore, after confirming Fang Hao's identity, he shouted for help, disregarding everything else. Fang Hao came to the front of the iron cage. When he heard the disheveled person inside say that he was Su Yang, he also revealed a surprised expression. He had thought that the ones locked in the cage were a few savages. Fang Hao frowned and asked, "You are Su Yang?" "Yes, Senior Fang Hao." Su Yang immediately wiped his dirty face, pushed the hair blocking his face to the side, and then said, "Senior, could you talk to these adults and tell them that we haven't done anything bad? Could you let us out?" It seemed that Su Yang couldn't yet determine Fang Hao's identity. He only thought that Fang Hao knew these undead. He wanted Fang Hao to act as a guarantor and release him and his subordinates. Fang Hao nodded and said to the black-armored undead hero beside him, "I know this person. Release them." "Yes, sir," Blacksword nodded. Immediately, 2 soldiers came up, opened the iron cage, and released the men. Su Yang heard the blue undead hero respectfully address Fang Hao as sir. He revealed an even more astonished expression. Thinking about Fang Hao's killing of Yu Tianpeng in the channel yesterday, a surreal guess suddenly arose in his heart. Could it be that this endless undead army here is all under Fang Hao's command? As soon as this thought arose, it was immediately rejected by himself. How could this be possible? Even if Fang Hao is powerful, he is just a transmigrator. How could he possibly possess so many troops in 3 months? He even surpassed the local forces. The iron cage was opened, and Su Yang led a group of disheveled villagers out. "Thank you, Senior Fang Hao. Thank you, Senior." Su Yang repeatedly expressed his thanks. Regardless of his current identity or Fang Hao's killing of Yu Tianpeng yesterday, he didn't dare to show anything less than respect. "Have your men go over there to rest for a while. Let's go inside and talk," Fang Hao said. Su Yang nodded, gave a few instructions to his subordinates, and then followed Fang Hao into the command hall. They sat down inside the hall. Fang Hao also curiously asked, "How did you guys get into this state? I thought you were wild men who ran out from somewhere." "Alas, after I exchanged food and equipment with you, That damn troll actually wanted to eat us, so we fled overnight and hid in a cave for 17 days, turning us into what we are now. Su Yang said with a sigh. He didn't mention the battle between the undead and the trolls. After all, he was now in the undead's camp. If he said something wrong, there would be nowhere to complain if his head was chopped off. So, you're saying you only came out of the cave today and were captured? Fang Hao found it somewhat amusing. Black Sword said that Su Yang had sneaked into the bloody mountains from the outside. Actually, Su Yang wanted to sneak out. That's right, we didn't do anything, alas. It's so hard to live. Su Yang sighed again. Abandoned cities can be seen everywhere in the bloody mountains. They all belonged to human lords who had transmigrated, but after the 7-day protection period, most of them had already been buried in the trolls' mouths, becoming appetizers. Su Yang's birth here was unfortunate, but to have survived until now was fortunate. Fang Hao thought for a moment and continued to ask, "You will be released in a while. What are your plans next?" Hearing Fang Hao inquire about his future plans, Su Yang felt somewhat lost. His plan was to leave the bloody mountains, but he hadn't thought about which city to live and develop in afterward. The outside world was unfamiliar to him. The only advantage of human cities was that they didn't eat people, but they also faced other dangers. Su Yang glanced at Fang Hao with a pair of eyes. He had heard that Fang Hao killed Yu Tianpeng this time because the latter wanted to attack Dong Jiayue's city. Fang Hao's reputation in the region had always been good, and if he could latch on to Fang Hao, it would be a good decision. Ahem, we don't have any subsequent plans. This is also the first time we've come out of the bloody mountains, Senior Fang Hao. If possible, could I work under you? Su Yang said directly. To work under him meant to help with tasks. Rather than struggling outside, it would be better to follow Fang Hao. Building a city required a lot of manpower and resources. Even if he lost his territory, he still had the advantage of being a transmigrator, able to make things and identify the writing of any race. He should be stronger than those farmers. He had also worked as a foreman for a long time with the trolls. He could arrange for farmers to produce. In short, he wanted to follow Fang Hao, but he had to see if Fang Hao agreed. Fang Hao looked at Su Yang and wasn't surprised by the other party's decision. He said calmly, 2 cities were vacated yesterday. How about this? I'll arrange for you to go to one to be a magistrate, but you have to guarantee the output of resources. Can you do it? Fang Hao planned to arrange for him to go to Qiuzhishang City. A large number of tile kilns had been built in Qiuzhishang City. Fang Hao needed someone good at management to stabilize the production of tiles and expand agricultural development. Su Yang was a good candidate. Hearing Fang Hao's words, Su Yang immediately revealed a surprised expression. Originally, he thought that Fang Hao would arrange for him to do ordinary work, but he didn't expect to directly give him a city. His abandoned city, wasn't it coming back? Moreover, his original city had nothing. It couldn't be worse than his. Yes. Senior, don't worry. I will do a good job and guarantee to complete the task, and I will never fail your expectations. Su Yang guaranteed loudly. Okay, give me the Lord's book. Then you will be the magistrate of my affiliated city. Oh, okay. Su Yang took off the Lord's book and respectfully handed it to Fang Hao. Devourable Lord's book, level 1. Devouring successful. Your Lord's book is currently at level 6, required for upgrade 4/20. After devouring, Su Yang's Lord's book disappeared. At the same time, a city Lord's book split out, and Fang Hao handed it to Su Yang. Go and explain to your men. I'll send you over later. Fang Hao said. Oh, okay. Su Yang agreed and walked out directly to explain to his men. After everything was dealt with, Fang Hao summoned demon teleportation and took Su Yang and his subordinates. He went directly to Qiuzhishang City. Lord Nie, who was stationed there, immediately stepped forward to greet him. Fang Hao nodded. Nie, leave this place to them. You will come back with me later. Okay, sir. Nie said in a deep voice. Qiuzhishang City had reached level 7. Among the transmigrators, it was considered a higher-level city. Su Yang looked excited. Not only did he have his own city again, but he also didn't have to worry about the trolls eating him. It was as if he had been reborn, and hope filled his heart once more. Boss, thank you. I will definitely work hard, Suyang promised earnestly again. He realized that Fang Hao's power was far beyond his imagination. Following Fang Hao would be the most correct decision he had ever made. All right, just work hard. Fang Hao patted him on the shoulder. After speaking, he also built the Greatsword Infantry Training Ground and Storm Crossbowman Training Ground, two special buildings of the human faction, for Suyang. He recruited 505 Greatsword Infantry and 505 Storm Crossbowmen, and provided the necessary equipment to arm the troops. He also took Suyang to see the tile kiln and explain the task. Only then did he use the demon teleport to return directly to his main city. In the afternoon, Fang Hao sent Gray Bear and 20 subordinates to Yu Tianping's territory for temporary management. He originally wanted to send the rabbit-eared maids by his side. The maids had all signed slave contracts with him, and after taking the stamina potion, many of them had reached the 3rd or 4th rank. They could also manage a city on his behalf. But soon, Fang Hao dismissed this idea. The maids had been slaves for a long time, and their personalities were relatively weak, lacking strong opinions. If they were sent directly to a distant territory, they might not be able to intimidate the city's residents in situations where he couldn't attend to them. But Gray Bear was different. Gray Bear came from a bandit background. Although she was a woman, she was very fierce. Managing and intimidating a city was more than enough. Fang Hao still had to tell her to pay attention to her status and restrain her behavior. As for the direction of development, it would all be determined by Fang Hao, and she didn't need to make decisions, only acting as a local administrator. After settling down both cities, Fang Hao finally breathed a sigh of relief. 2 days later, the open space in front of the Lord's mansion. Fang Hao stood in place and began to condense fire elements. Immediately afterward, he waved the spark staff in his hand forward. Cracks appeared on the ground directly in front of him, like broken porcelain, as if something was about to break out of the earth. The next second, whoosh. Flames rose, and a 2-meter-high, 3-headed fire serpent emerged from the ground. Its body burned with scorching flames, searching for a target to attack. Fang Hao issued an attack command to the wooden target set up not far away. The fire serpent directly spat out a flame, and with a bang, the wooden target exploded instantly, and the surrounding area also began to burn. Yes, Fang Hao shouted. After researching the 3-headed fire serpent mysteries one for so long, he finally successfully summoned one today. The 2-meter-high 3-headed serpent, all 3 heads could spit out flames, attacking enemy targets. The effect was very good, making him very satisfied. Most importantly, this was not something he obtained through a skill scroll, but something he learned little by little from books himself. He felt a great sense of accomplishment. Fang Hao waved the staff in his hand again, and the 3-headed fire serpent immediately dissipated, turning into specks of firelight. Nearby, maids immediately directed the skeletons forward to extinguish the burning fire. At noon, after lunch, a bone dragon suddenly fell from the sky. Nelson, who had disappeared for several days, and 6 necromantic priests walked down from the back of the bone dragon. In Nelson's hand, he held an organ jar. "Lord, the organ jar has been sealed," Nelson said. "Thank you for your hard work, Scholar Nelson." Then, Fang Hao curiously looked at the organ jar in the other's hand and asked, "Does this organ jar have any special abilities?" According to the description displayed by that half of a heart, it could be determined that it had a certain connection with the giant spirit god. But how the effect was after sealing was still unclear. Fang Hao was also somewhat expectant. "Please see, Lord." Nelson directly handed over the organ jar. Fang Hao took it, and he could already see the attributes of the organ jar. Organ jar, dark gold. Category, magic container. Abilities, giant body, lightning strike. Giant body, body strength plus 80%, strength plus 50%, elemental resistance plus 50%. Lightning strike, can throw a lightning bolt at an enemy target, attacking a target within a maximum range of 500 meters, with a cooldown time of 15 minutes. Description: enraging the lightning will bring complete destruction and disaster. Seeing the attributes of the organ jar, Fang Hao was immediately shocked. A dark gold-level organ jar was the first time he had ever seen one. Even in the Chamber of Commerce's station, The highest level organ jar he had seen was only orange quality. He never expected that this time, after sealing the organ, it would directly reach dark gold, making his heart beat wildly. The organ jar provided two abilities: Giant Body and Lightning Strike. Giant Body was a passive skill, providing 80% of the original body strength and 50% of the strength. In Fang Hao's opinion, body strength was the character's defense. Whether it was 80% defense or 50% strength, it was already a very high increase. In addition, it also increased elemental resistance by 50%, which could resist attacks from various elements. The second Lightning Strike was the offensive active skill provided. This was also the only organ jar among all the organ jars he had obtained that had an active skill. It could project a lightning strike on a target unit within a range of 500 yards, causing lightning damage similar to magic. So far, the organ museum could still only place one organ jar per building, whether it was an 80% body increase or a 50% strength increase. The higher the base attributes, the better the effect, which was undoubtedly most suitable for Nisbet, this 10th order unit. However, thinking from another perspective, Fang Hao felt that something was wrong again. Lightning Strike. If Nisbet released Lightning Strike, it would only be 101 people. If this organ jar was used to increase ordinary skeleton warriors, it would be millions of lightning strikes. That kind of effect should be better than Nisbet's effect. Fang Hao's combat method had never been personal heroism, but rather using numbers to overwhelm the few. Thinking about it this way, the burial ground, which recruited the most units, was more suitable for this organ jar. However, it still needed to be tested whether ordinary skeleton warriors could correctly use Lightning Strike. He still remembered that when the skeleton units first used the sling dropped by the kobolds, not only did they knock down a large number of companions, but they also almost blew his head off. No sooner said than done. He and Nelson went to the organ museum, and Fang Hao directly took out the resurrection organ jar from the burial ground. Then he put the dark gold-level organ jar in his hand into it. As the organ jar sank, a light blue halo with electric arcs spread out instantly. The aura spread, and the amplification effect of the organ pot took effect. Next, I need to test some effects to ensure that the skeleton warriors won't accidentally injure other soldiers when using their abilities. Stepping out of the city gate, I chose an open space outside the city. Fang Hao summoned 1,000 skeleton warriors armed with iron swords and shields. They neatly formed a square formation. I ordered some practice targets to be placed 500 meters from the formation, and then everyone hid far away. Fang Hao directly ordered the skeleton warrior formation. Targets 500 meters ahead, use Lightning Strike. From the right hand of 1,000 skeleton warriors, a lightning javelin crackling with electric light appeared simultaneously. They aimed at the targets 500 meters away and threw them directly. The lightning javelins arced through the air, bang. ZZZZZT. 1,000 lightning javelins completely covered the target area. In addition to the damage from the javelin hits, there was a lightning diffusion effect within a certain range. Azure electric snakes spread outwards, covering a large area. However, the effect I was worried about, hitting teammates, did not occur. After throwing the lightning javelins, not a single one of the 1,000 skeleton warriors was accidentally injured. The formation remained standing, waiting for orders. Set the targets at 200 meters. Fang Hao continued to order. The original targets at 500 meters had already been reduced to fragments by the lightning strikes. New targets were brought over and set up 200 meters in front of the skeleton formation. Once everyone retreated to a safe place and the lightning strike skill cooldown was complete, Fang Hao continued to order. Targets 200 meters ahead, Lightning Strike. 1,000 skeleton warriors' hands were again filled with lightning javelins, which they threw towards the targets 200 meters ahead. Due to the distance, the lightning javelins thrown by the first and second rows of skeleton warriors hit the targets. However, those in the back, needing to avoid their teammates in front, threw with a larger arc, resulting in some deviation in accuracy. But it's confirmed that the current skeleton soldiers still lack the ability to think independently. Yet, they will avoid accidentally injuring their teammates in combat. Fang Hao was very satisfied with this point. His troop numbers were sufficient, even if the hit rate wasn't high. In large-scale battles, area of effect bombardment can completely compensate for accuracy. All right, return to your respective posts. Fang Hao sent the 1,000 skeleton warriors back to their positions. Feeling satisfied, he returned to the organ museum. Nelson was still standing at the entrance, instructing the funeral priests on the items and tasks that needed to be prepared. Currently, the organ museum still stored two troll bodies. One was Rockhead, Ball, and the other was Flesh Fist, Caius. Nelson had just returned and needed to continue working, turning these two bodies into skeleton heroes. Even though the weather was gradually turning colder, the bodies still needed to be processed and air-dried as quickly as possible. Seeing Fang Hao return, Nelson asked again, "My lord, how were the results?" The results were very good. This organ pod, even if placed in the Merchant Alliance, would be considered top tier in attributes, Fang Hao replied with a smile. As long as my lord is satisfied. Unless Fang Hao asked him, Nelson would not offer any proposals or suggestions regarding the territory's planning and decisions. Everything was decided by Fang Hao himself. Moreover, currently, every time Nelson came out of seclusion, the territory's strength showed significant improvement, a point on which he was quite satisfied with Fang Hao. Sometimes he was even surprised by Fang Hao's growth rate. Therefore, Nelson's loyalty had always been very stable, never showing a decline. Scholar Nelson, you don't need to rush your work too much. Taking a couple of days off occasionally is also fine, Fang Hao added. By now, the territory had acquired a certain degree of self-preservation capability. Nelson no longer needed to shut himself in the organ museum like before, continuously creating skeleton heroes. Fang Hao actually hoped that Nelson could balance work and rest, perhaps play chess with others occasionally, instead of working at high intensity. Thank you for your concern, my lord. With the help of the funeral order, the previous workload will be reduced by more than half, Nelson nodded. With the auxiliary work handed over to the funeral order, Nelson's workload was reduced. Okay, tell me what you need, or just have Duogene purchase it directly from the Merchant Alliance. Understood, my lord. At this moment, a funeral priest also walked over with materials. After bowing again, Nelson, accompanied by a few funeral priests, went directly up to the second floor. At the same time, several others also carried the air-dried body of Ball upstairs. Nelson went upstairs to work. Fang Hao also placed the replaced resurrection organ pod into the slot of the ancient burial pit. Another day passed. The 2 million-strong army, led by Black Sword, also arrived at their destination after traveling day and night. When Dong Jieyue was woken up by a servant and stumbled onto the city wall. Seeing the endless, winding army of white bones covering the mountains and plains outside the city, she completely froze in place, staring blankly at the approaching army. The alarm bell in the city had already rung, and all the defenders climbed onto the city wall, their legs trembling as they watched the approaching army. At this moment, a white bone horse slowly stopped below the city gate. On the back of the bone horse sat a fully armored pigman. He pulled back the mask covering his mouth and nose and shouted loudly, "Who is Miss Dong Jieyue? We are the army from Jinbei City. Lord Blacksword requests Miss Dong Jieyue to come over." The pigman shouted loudly 2 or 3 times before the people on the city wall finally understood what he was saying. Dong Jieyue stood on the city wall and asked the pigman below, "Are you Fang Hao's army?" Fang Hao had mentioned to her that he would arrange for an army to come, and she would be responsible for receiving them and arranging a city for them to station in. The undead army before her was too terrifying, making her somewhat uncertain if it was truly Fang Hao's force. "Yes, we are Lord Fang Hao's army. Please, Miss Dong Jieyue, come out and accompany me to meet Lord Black Sword." The pigman continued to shout loudly. The battle in the Bloody Mountains was over. Black Thorn, as the garrison general, remained in Jinbei City. And this time, for the operation to conquer the barren battlefield, Black Sword served as the overall commander, with the 2 heroes Giant Wall and Heavy Arrow as deputy commanders. Of course, after the march, Fang Hao would also come unless there were special circumstances. He wanted to see if this barren battlefield was truly as terrifying as described. "Oh, okay, I'll come over now." She quickly went down the city wall, opened the city gate, and walked out. The pigman led her through the vast bone army to the middle of the formation. There, she saw a skeleton hero completely covered in metal armor, with a dark iron sword at his waist. "Commander Blacksword, I've brought Miss Dong Jiayue," the pigman reported. "All right, you may step down," Blacksword said. The pigman retreated again. After observing Blacksword's attire and hero rank, she also imitated, saying, "Commander Blacksword." "Yes, Miss Dong Jiayue. May I know if the city for the army's stationing is ready?" Blacksword asked plainly, without even a word of courtesy to Dong Jiayue. "It is ready." After Fang Hao's instructions, Dong Jiayue had already prepared a city for the stationing. "Then I'll trouble Miss Dong Jiayue to lead the way." "Okay." The undead army began to move westward. They finally arrived at the city that Dong Jiayue had vacated. Dong Jiayue managed 4 cities, and this one was the closest to the barren battlefield. The residents inside the city had already been evacuated. This city would be entirely handed over to the undead army for stationing, serving as a temporary base for heading to the barren battlefield. Upon arriving in the city, the undead began to set up defenses orderly surrounding the city. "Miss Dong Jiayue," Blacksword said. "Commander Blacksword, what is it? Please tell me." Dong Jiayue had by now recovered from her shock. Knowing that these were Fang Hao's heroes and troops meant they wouldn't harm her. "How many troops do you have?" Blacksword asked directly. Dong Jiayue was startled, wondering if her troops would also be asked to participate in the battle. But then she thought it unlikely. The number of undead soldiers before her probably exceeded 1,000,000. Her small number of people wouldn't make any difference at all. After calculating the number in her mind, she answered truthfully, "I have 2,000 people." Dong Jiayue had soul crystals, but she had never primarily focused on military development. Instead, she had always leaned towards agricultural development. She had established quite a few farmlands and quarries, but she hadn't recruited many combat troops. Fang Hao had shared the blueprint for the heavy sword infantry training camp with her long ago. It was only when she learned that the Skyrock Alliance was going to attack her that she built it and expanded her forces to 2,000. Otherwise, she usually only had over 1,000 people responsible for the safety near the city. Their most common job was driving away and hunting wild beasts. "Okay, send 1,000 people over first. I will arrange for them to serve as messengers and handle logistics," Blacksword instructed. "Oh, okay," Dong Jiayue nodded in agreement. After chatting with Blacksword for a while, Dong Jiayue returned to the city where she resided. According to Blacksword's requirements, she began preparing various supplies and the personnel that needed to be transferred. This was her first time participating in such a large-scale battle. After the initial nervousness, she felt a bit excited. The next day, early morning, Fang Hao woke up early, washed up, and ate breakfast. With Ear's assistance, he put on his armor and equipment. Yesterday noon, he had received a message from Dong Jiayue that Blacksword's army had arrived and could depart for the barren battlefield at any time. So, early this morning, Fang Hao began to prepare, planning to also go to the barren land. With the demon teleportation ability, the time spent traveling was directly eliminated. If something happened in the territory, he could also teleport back directly. Scholar Nelson will likely be in seclusion for a few days. The territory will still need you to look after it, Fang Hao instructed Ear. Will Master be back tonight?" Ear asked softly. "In special circumstances, I will come back to stay the night." Ear immediately showed a smile. "Tonight, I'll make a new dish for Master to try." "Okay." Fang Hao ruffled her head and walked out of the Lord's manor. Outside the door, Demetria and Anya, along with 20 Nispet, were waiting for Fang Hao. Hearing that the barren battlefield was very dangerous, it was only natural to make more preparations. Seeing that everyone was ready, Fang Hao didn't waste words, directly summoned the demon puppet and released demon teleportation. A teleportation gate appeared in front of them. There were only 10 seconds. Fang Hao stepped directly into the light curtain. His vision returned, and he had already appeared in the city where Blacksword was stationed. The city was exceptionally busy at this time. Large numbers of soldiers, under command, were loading needed arrows and supplies onto carts. The main force of the army was, of course, the undead army, but it also included a large number of human and orc soldiers. In addition, since Fang Hao would also be accompanying them this time, food and tent supplies were essential items. Seeing Fang Hao and the others arrive, Black Sword and Dong Jieyue, among others, quickly walked out of the city lord's manor. Lord Fang Hao, Miss Anya, Lord Demetria, the skeleton hero, and several orc captains bowed. Dong Jieyue also bowed, but her gaze curiously examined the beast-eared girl behind Fang Hao. She had never been to Fang Hao's territory, so she had naturally never met Anya. How could another hero appear? How many heroes did Brother Hao have? She had already seen 5 now, 1 orange and 4 blue. How are the preparations coming? Fang Hao asked casually. Everything is ready. We can depart at any time, Black Sword replied from the side. Have the roads been scouted clearly? Yesterday, a large number of scouts were already sent out for advance reconnaissance. The route is clear. Good, prepare to depart. Yes, my lord. Black Sword responded, and orders were transmitted one by one. Soon, the large army began to move slowly, starting to advance along the planned route towards the direction of the barren battlefield. Fang Hao sat in a carriage, slowly moving with the army. He held a magic book in his hand, reading it intently. My lord, there is a small human city ahead. A scout approached the carriage and asked in a low voice. Fang Hao pulled back the carriage curtain and looked ahead. That was a city belonging to a transmigrator. Judging by the scale of the city walls, it should be a level 5 city. As long as they don't attack the army, ignore them and just proceed, Fang Hao said softly. Yes, my lord. The scout replied, kicked his horse's belly, and quickly rode away. Along the way, there was a level 5 transmigrator territory. The lord of this city had not yet woken up when his subordinate rushed into the room, rolling and crawling. The lord was startled. Seeing it was his subordinate, he used his underwear to cover his important parts while cursing. Are you crazy? What are you rushing in for? The subordinate had no mind to look at him, his face full of terror as he said, Lord, this is bad. A large number of undead have appeared ahead and are approaching us. What? What nonsense are you talking about? Lord, go and see quickly. Otherwise, we should run. After speaking, the subordinate grabbed his lord and pulled him out, running towards the city wall. The lord stumbled, running along while pulling up his SpongeBob underwear. As soon as he reached the steps of the city wall, he noticed the seriousness of the situation. Several of his soldiers were already terrified and collapsed to the ground. He also felt the ground trembling with a rhythmic beat, as if some giant creature was approaching. He no longer dared to hesitate, quickly climbed the city wall, and looked into the distance. At this sight, his face instantly turned pale, and his legs began to tremble. Undead, densely packed undead. They formed an endless white serpent, winding its way towards them. How is this possible? Where could there be so many undead? In the understanding of this world, living beings and undead are natural enemies. Even though living beings have distinctions of good and evil and race, their attitude towards the undead is surprisingly consistent. After meeting, they are basically in a state of life and death. Even if the undead's goal is not themselves, such a large army can flatten a city just by passing through. My lord, what should we do? A subordinate helped him up, asking in a trembling voice. The lord's legs were still trembling a bit. What else can we do? Notify everyone to leave from the side gate. Just as the soldier was about to notify everyone to leave, in the sky, several bone dragons roared past, carrying a sense of oppression. It made the lord, who had just stood up, collapse again. With this delay, the undead army was already approaching their city. Opening the city gate now was obviously more dangerous. They couldn't leave even if they wanted to. The city gates were tightly shut, and everyone sat paralyzed on the city wall, waiting for the final death. The marching footsteps, like beating drums, passed by everyone's ears. A soldier carefully stood up and looked down from the city wall. He saw the undead army passing by on the road about 10 meters in front of their city, ignoring their city. My lord, they've passed by. They didn't bother with us, the soldier said in a low voice. The lord was stunned, immediately climbed up, and also looked down from the city wall. He saw the leading troops of the undead walking along the dirt road ahead, and the long, thin line behind them followed, clearly having no intention of bothering with them. It should be fine. Tell everyone to try not to show their heads, so as not to attract these monsters. The Lord instructed everyone, but he couldn't help but pull out his Lord's book. At the gap in the city wall, he took several pictures of the undead army. Then he leaned against the corner of the wall and sent them to the regional channel. And he added the caption, "Damn it, the life and death of humanity depends on today. I will shed my last drop of blood for humanity. Humanity will win. Living beings will win." There were still many people in the channel at this time. When they saw the pictures and the caption, they started discussing. What's going on? Why are there so many undead? It's too scary. I have trypophobia, brother. It makes my scalp tingle just looking at it. Are the undead attacking humans? Why does this person's caption sound like they're fighting to the death? It's quite tragic. Tragic my ass, it's full of Chinibu vibes. From the angle, he should be hiding on the side and taking pictures secretly. After the analysis upstairs, it really feels that way. It's clear that this undead army is all moving forward and didn't even look in the direction where the photo was taken. The angle isn't the point, is it? Look at the troop types in this undead army. They're very complete. Shield warriors, spearmen, and also archers and mages. This should be a complete undead force. Indeed, the troop types are very complete, and there are various skeleton horses and skeleton cows. I wish I had a skeleton horse. How cool would that be? Doesn't that thing hurt your balls? I'm a woman. I'm not afraid. God, you're a woman and you're not afraid. Your topic is so off topic. Doesn't anyone feel that the shield warrior's shield and iron sword are very similar to the equipment sold by Boss Fang Hao? Don't say that. They really are. Could it be Boss Fang Hao's army? Even if Boss Fang Hao is powerful, it's impossible for him to have so many troops. Weapon blueprints might be easier to obtain on the undead side. Boss Fang Hao's merchant is a skeleton. I think so too. Fang Hao didn't see the content of the chat in the regional channel. Even if he saw it, he wouldn't explain anything. Now that Fang Hao's forces have developed, it's a good thing if the secret can be kept, but even if it's discovered by others in the region, it doesn't really matter. Currently, with the strength of the transmigrators, they cannot pose any threat to him. Even against the top local forces, other than assassination, he is not afraid of a frontal confrontation. The army continued to advance, and they saw a few more cities of transmigrators along the way. Fang Hao ignored them. These lords along the way also did not make any impulsive actions. They just took some photos and posted them in the channel, accompanied by various texts. Gradually, the people in the channel also began to become numb. Later, when lords posted similar pictures, it was difficult to cause any stir in the channel. They were even directly ignored by other topics. 5 p.m. My lord, we have reached the edge of the barren battlefield. The soldier's voice came from outside the carriage. Okay, I understand, Fang Hao replied. He patted Njia, who was resting on his lap, and said, Njia, wake up, we're here. Njia mumbled and opened her eyes. Where are we? Is it time for dinner? Njia said, Dinner? We just arrived at the barren battlefield, Fang Hao said in an annoyed tone. This guy can really eat and sleep. She had been sleeping since she got in the carriage until now. He always felt like she was going to enter hibernation early. This sleep was very deep. Oh, and Jia wiped the drool from the corner of her mouth and replied. Fang Hao walked out of the carriage and went to Black Sword's side, looking ahead. This was a vast area. Looking at it, it indeed fit the name Barren Battlefield. Unlike the desolation of the Cold Wind Mountains, the desolation here was not caused by a rocky and mountainous geological structure. Instead, it was another kind of desolation, as if the land had been destroyed. There were no trees or greenery here, only scattered armor and weapons buried in the dark red soil. One could imagine how many people died in the war back then. Arrange for someone to check if there's anything strange in here. Fang Hao said. Black Sword immediately arranged for a skeleton to stride into the red soil. The red soil was somewhat soft and loose. When a foot stepped on it, it sank down like mud. The skeleton soldier strode forward, walked for 100 meters, and then circled back, without any abnormalities occurring. Following orders, it continued to pull the buried metal weapons out of the ground. The weapons and armor were severely corroded, but no monsters appeared. Seeing this, Black Sword ordered the skeleton to return. However, on the way back, Demeter said in a low voice, "There are a few people hiding behind the dirt mound to the west." Demeter's voice was very low, but Fang Hao and Black Sword could hear it clearly. The two looked to the west and saw two figures instantly hiding behind the dirt mound. However, the distance was too far and their movements were too fast to see what kind of creatures they were. But it could be confirmed that there were indeed people over there. Could it be that there were still living beings surviving in this barren battlefield? Black Sword, arrange for people to bring those people over. Try to get them alive, Fang Hao said in a deep voice. Yes, my lord. Black Sword turned around and gave a few instructions. Swish, swish. Several sounds of breaking air rang out, and dozens of skeleton mantis men shot out, appearing in front of the distant dirt mound after a few leaps. As their long swords were swung, sounds of begging for mercy immediately came out. Immediately after, 3 short humanoid creatures were escorted over by the skeleton mantis men. They walked to the front of Fang Hao and the others, standing in place with their heads lowered. Dwarf Miner, Tier 2. Dwarf Blacksmith, Tier 3. Dwarves? The 3 people in front of him were only about 1.3 to 1.4 meters tall, and the tallest one did not exceed 1.5 meters. Although they were not tall, they were all stocky and muscular. Their rough and tattered linen clothes, and the exposed arms and thighs, were covered in thick muscles. Just standing there, their muscles were tense, like 3 personal trainers standing there. All 3 dwarves were male, with rough features and exaggerated beards. Fang Hao had seen dwarves in the Merchant Alliance station. Various kinds of beards were their biggest characteristic. Several lords, "We are just passing by and have no ill intentions," a red-bearded dwarf said cautiously. Although they stood there obediently, their restless eyes showed that they were looking for an opportunity to escape. "Why are you here?" Fang Hao asked, towards a human appearing in the undead army. The dwarves' eyes showed confusion, but they still explained, "We were just passing by. It just so happened that your army arrived here, and we were afraid of causing a misunderstanding, so we hid far away." The undead and living beings were still in opposition. It was understandable that they would subconsciously hide when they saw an army of the other side. However, Fang Hao didn't care about that. He was asking why they appeared in the barren battlefield. "What are you doing in the barren battlefield?" Fang Hao continued to ask. The red-bearded dwarf glanced at the skeleton mantis men surrounding him and continued to answer. "We want to take some equipment back from here." In the barren battlefield, under the dark red soil, many buried weapons and armor could be seen. So, they were scavenging here. Fang Hao did not continue to ask immediately, but instead had someone call Dong Jiayue from behind. "Are there dwarves nearby?" Fang Hao asked. Dong Jiayue shook her head. "This area is close to the barren battlefield, and the resources themselves are very scarce. Besides a few human villages, I haven't heard of any dwarves or other races existing here." Before becoming Fang Hao's subordinate territory, Dong Jiayue relied on exploring ancient tombs to upgrade her territory. This meant that this area was very desolate. The nearby lords would fight fiercely over some petty gains. But she had never heard of dwarves settling here. Fang Hao's gaze fell back on the 3 dwarves, and he said calmly, "If you don't tell the truth, you can only die here." Hearing the calm tone, the 3 dwarves instantly felt a chill down their spines. Such a large undead army had already made them fearful. If the other party said they were going to kill them, their leader would not be able to avenge them. "No, my lord. We really came here to pick up some iron tools to resmelt and then make equipment to sell to the nearby human cities." The red-bearded dwarf's forehead was already covered in sweat, and he guaranteed that he was not lying. Fang Hao felt that they weren't getting to the point. So he directly asked, "How many of you are there? Are you outsiders, or have you always lived near here?" Hearing Fang Hao's question, the 3 dwarves immediately stiffened. They looked at each other and simultaneously closed their mouths, no longer speaking. Fang Hao felt a little amused. What was the point of being stubborn at this time? "Kill them," Fang Hao ordered. The skeleton mantis men on the side immediately drew their swords, making a move to chop. The dwarves immediately spoke. "There are over 1,000 of us. We migrated here a month ago." They all said that dwarves were irritable and difficult to communicate with. In Fang Hao's opinion, The method of communication was very simple. This area is relatively desolate. Why did you migrate here? This, because 2 months ago, there were some conflicts between the dwarf clans. We lost, many people died, and we finally migrated here. The red-bearded dwarf gritted his teeth and finally said it. Fang Hao frowned, suddenly remembering a period of time before. His shop had received a large number of dwarf orders, including gunpowder, firearms, and even equipment used by dwarves, all within the scope of the orders. He had suspected that there might have been a war among the dwarves, but he hadn't considered that it would be an internal clan conflict. The words of the three were consistent with his orders, so they should not be lying. Moreover, lying about this matter would not be of any use. What is your leader's name? Fang Hao continued to ask. At this, the dwarves hesitated and did not answer immediately, but instead said, "This undead lord, I can guarantee that we have no ill intentions or designs on you and your army. Please, in view of our honesty, do not make things difficult for us anymore. I can barely believe that the three of you just happened to meet us. I hope to talk to your leader," Fang Hao said directly. He was becoming more and more interested in dwarves. He heard that dwarves were all born craftsmen and firearms masters. He wondered if there would be any unexpected gains this time. "My lord, there's no need for that. I can inform the leader to leave here immediately and not disturb your actions," the red-bearded dwarf continued to say. He didn't want to lead this huge undead army to his camp. Otherwise, wouldn't they be wiped out by these undead? The dwarves were unwilling to speak, but that didn't mean Fang Hao had no way. Before long, a jackal man ran over, sticking out his tongue and reporting, "My lord, a dwarf camp has been found to the southwest. Dwarves can be seen entering and exiting, with a number close to 1,000. Jackal men were not considered high-tier troops in the orc tribes, but they themselves possessed a certain tracking ability, and coupled with running on all fours, their speed was also very fast. In Fang Hao's army, they were mostly used as scouts and messengers. Another type in the territory that was close to reconnaissance and intelligence gathering was the black-footed cat tribe. They had not yet been included in the army. "Okay, well done," Fang Hao praised. The jackal man retreated, and the three dwarves were now dumbfounded. If they had known that the other party could find out, they would have just said it. They risked being killed and said nothing, and in the blink of an eye, the other party found the location. Now that everything that needed to be asked had been asked, wouldn't they be killed now? Fang Hao turned around and saw that the faces of the three dwarves were getting uglier and uglier, and the sweat on their foreheads was increasing. He thought, could they be having some sudden illness? "Are you three all right?" Fang Hao said directly. Their thick legs were trembling a little. Fang Hao continued to ask, "Is there no danger to living beings in here? I saw you go in. If we tell you, will you let us go?" The red-bearded dwarf looked up and asked. "Yes." "Really?" The three dwarves were stunned. "Do you think I need to lie to you?" Fang Hao retorted. "Okay, I'll tell you, it's poisonous in here. Toxic." Fang Hao looked at the three of them curiously. Their ranks weren't high, and they weren't wearing masks. It didn't look like it was toxic inside. As if sensing Fang Hao's confusion, one of the dwarves explained, "Normally it's not toxic, but you can't have any wounds. Once there's a wound, the injured area will get infected, and it won't be long before the whole person turns into an undead monster and attacks their companions." Fang Hao's gaze fell back on the iron gauntlets the three were wearing. It seemed these gloves were to prevent scratching their fingers when picking up various spoils of war. "Are antidotes useful?" Fang Hao asked. "Not useful, but holy light is useful," another dwarf said. Holy light. Holy light was a term used by the church, a general term for light magic. At the mention of holy light, the red-bearded dwarf glared at his companion. It was as if he was blaming the other party for being reckless, for not mentioning holy light to an undead army. But since the words were already spoken, they couldn't be taken back. The red-bearded dwarf immediately explained, "Yes, the chief had a bottle of holy light potion before. After the injured took it, it did have some effect, but it only provided some relief. Afterwards, they needed to leave the Red Land immediately, otherwise they would still get infected." Light magic indeed had an inhibitory effect on dark forms of energy. It was understandable that it would have some effect. Fang Hao continued to ask, "Are there any enemy creatures inside? How far have you gone?" "Yes, if you go further in, there will be many infected living corpses. Our strength is not enough, so the furthest we've gone is just on the edge to pick up some items," the red-bearded dwarf continued to answer. Fang Hao nodded. He had finished asking what he wanted to know. After thinking for a moment, he said to the side, "Jiayue, Zhong Shi, Brother Hao." "My lord." The two answered simultaneously. "The two of you, take some men to escort these three back. Since you're new here, Jiayue, you can also meet this dwarf chief as a greeting," Fang Hao instructed softly. "Okay," the two agreed. Upon hearing this, the faces of the three dwarves instantly turned pale again. "My lord, there's no need. It's not far, and we usually walk by ourselves. No need for an escort," the dwarf said hastily. But Fang Hao didn't answer him. Zhong Shi waved his hand, and a few skeleton warriors lifted the three dwarves and walked to the side. Dong Jiayue moved closer and softly asked, "Brother Hao, what are we going to see that chief for?" "To see if the other party is a hero, and if so, what they are good at. They don't even have a place to live, so we can try to recruit them," Fang Hao stated his idea. These dwarves were clearly in a predicament. It was also a good time to recruit them. "Oh, I understand. Brother Hao is still so thoughtful. When you go, act a bit arrogant. You represent our territory. Even if we fight, we are not afraid of them," Fang Hao instructed. Dwarves were notoriously short-tempered. But this temper depended on who the other party was. Just like now, if you were powerful and strong, dwarves were also people and feared death. But if you were perceived as weak by the other party, then the dwarves naturally wouldn't show a very friendly attitude. "Understood," Dong Jiayue replied. Fang Hao nodded. "Be back before dark." "Okay." Dong Jiayue agreed and led her people into Zhong Shi's team. Tens of thousands of undead troops walked towards the dwarf camp. After dealing with the dwarf issue, Fang Hao opened the Lord's Book. In the Building tab, he found the fortress building. After choosing a location, he directly selected to build. Soon, a level 1 fortress appeared before everyone's eyes. Fang Hao upgraded the fortress to level 5 and also built a large number of residential houses and warehouses inside. This was to provide accommodation for the accompanying orcs and humans, and the warehouses were for storing supplies. Then he crafted a large number of single beds and daily necessities. With the hundredfold increase buff, Fang Hao didn't care about wasting this little bit of resources. The buildings and items were ready. The troops and soldiers began to act, patrolling the buildings. This would serve as the base for attacking the barren battlefield. After everything was settled, Fang Hao gave Black Sword a few simple instructions and then handed everything over to Black Sword. He used demon teleportation and returned directly to his main city within Jia, and they appeared outside the Lord's mansion. Before Fang Hao could speak, and Jia was the first to shout, "Ear, I'm so hungry." Ear came out of the room, her face full of smiles. Okay, there's good food tonight." On the other side, Dong Jiayue and Zhong Shi, with 50,000 troops, had already arrived at the dwarf camp. The camp gate was tightly shut, and on the city wall, dwarves holding firearms pointed their muzzles at the army below. Dong Jiayue and Zhong Shi were protected in the center of the army. "We just want to talk to your chief. If he doesn't want to talk, it's actually simpler to flatten this place," Dong Jiayue said to the three dwarves. "Two sirs, please give us some time. I will take the message to the chief. We will not start a war," the dwarves replied hastily. They knew that the 50,000 troops in front of them were only a small part of the undead army, let alone the more than 1,000 people in their camp. Even the 8 Peaks mountain, where the dwarves lived, couldn't withstand such a massive army. "Okay, our lord also doesn't want to start a war. We hope we can have a peaceful meeting," Dong Jiayue continued. Definitely. "Okay, let them leave," Dong Jiayue said. The undead team made way for a path. The three dwarves walked step by step towards the camp. Only after confirming that the undead army had no intention of attacking did the city gate open a crack, allowing the three to enter. After that, the city gate was closed again, until half an hour later. The gate opened again, and the red-bearded dwarf walked over again, saying in a low voice, "My lord, our chief invites the two of you in to talk. That only the two of you can come over." Upon hearing this news, Dong Jiayue's face instantly turned cold. This dwarf was really self-important. Even in this situation, he still couldn't see the bigger picture. Miss Dong Jiayue, I think it's better to just kill them all. We have to go back before dark, Zhongshu said. Their division of labor was also very clear. Although Dong Jiayue was still a decent fighter, she was only considered a skilled militia. She couldn't compare to a hero. This time, she was the negotiator, and Zhongshu was the commander. Dong Jiayue looked at the red-bearded dwarf and continued, 10 minutes. If your dwarf chief doesn't come out, I will attack directly. Let's see if he plans to continue being arrogant or drag all of you down with him. Yes, okay. The red-bearded dwarf's face turned pale. He turned around and ran back. Sure enough, in less than 10 minutes, the city gate opened again. A dwarf wearing heavy armor, a horned helmet, and a grayish-white beard walked out. Behind him were 5 dwarves who looked equally strong. He strode to the front of the undead formation, and a deep voice sounded. Belagar, welcome friends of the undead. The undead army made way for a path. The dwarf walked into the middle of the formation. At the same time, Dong Jiayue also saw the other party's name. Ironbeard, Belagar, Purple Tier 4 hero. Belagar wore a gold and silver intertwined horned helmet and had a thick, long, grayish-white beard on his chin. Like iron wires, it was braided into 5 thin braids. I am Belagar, chief of Badgar Peak of 8 Peaks Mountain. How should I address you? Belagar's tone was very unfriendly, and the suppressed anger could be heard. Dong Jiayue, and this is Commander Zhongshu, Dong Jiayue introduced calmly. She had a bit of the composure of a negotiator at the table. Belagar curiously sized up the strange combination in front of him. On the city wall, he had only seen the large area of undead below. Only when he entered the formation did he realize that the one negotiating with him was a human. Undead and living beings gathered together, making him increasingly curious about the origin of this army. Then, Miss Dong Jiayue, what is it that you want to talk about after surrounding my camp? Belagar continued to ask. It's nothing major. Our lord happened to be passing by with his army and heard that there was a dwarf camp here. So he asked me to come over and invite you to meet tomorrow, Dong Jiayue said calmly. Indeed, as Fang Hao expected, the leader of this team was a dwarf hero and a purple hero. Although it was unclear what his attributes and skills were, a purple hero's basic attributes were already considered top tier among heroes. Belagar was stunned. This result was beyond his expectations. Making such a big fuss just to inform him that he had to go meet their lord tomorrow? What exactly did this mean? I don't seem to be familiar with your lord. I don't know what we are going to talk about. Belagar continued to press. Chief Belagar, our lord is willing to talk, which is a good thing for you. You shouldn't want both sides to handle this matter in a simpler way, should you? Dong Jiayue looked at the other party, her words carrying a hint of warning. Fang Hao had arranged for Dong Jiayue and Zhongshu to come over. In fact, he had made 2 considerations. One was if the other party was willing to talk. Fang Hao also didn't want to be a villain who was unreasonable and attacked everyone he saw. If the other party wasn't willing to talk, then things would become simpler. He wouldn't allow a camp that could observe his military movements to exist nearby. There was no difference between a dwarf hero and a dwarf skeleton hero. Belagar's face turned cold, his eyes filled with anger. But the situation was right in front of him. After a few core dwarf followers who had come with him exchanged a few words in low voices, Belagar could only nod in agreement. Okay, I will go to your place tomorrow to see your lord. Yes, that's exactly what we want to see, Dong Jiayue nodded. Belagar snorted coldly, turned around, and walked out. Behind him, Dong Jiayue's voice continued. Oh, and don't let your clan members leave the city at night. There are quite a few undead warriors nearby. They don't recognize people, and it would be bad if there were casualties. Belagar's expression became even uglier. This was a reminder not to think about escaping. It was too much bullying. He had been driven out of 8 Peaks Mountain, and now he had to endure this here. Belagar strode away, returned to his camp, and the city gate closed heavily. Dong Jiayue and Zhongshu turned around and walked towards the place where they had set up camp. Early the next morning, after Fang Hao got up, he simply washed up and had breakfast. He used demon teleportation and arrived at the barren battlefield camp again. The army was already ready. Everyone was also up, preparing for today's action. The sudden appearance of Fang Hao and the two others in the middle of the camp didn't attract anyone's attention. It was as if they were three invisible people, all busy with their own affairs. Entering the commander's mansion, he saw Dong Jiue accompanying a few dwarfs. "Brother Hao, cough cough. Lord, this is Chief Belagar from Eight Peaks Mountain." Dong Jiue stood up and introduced as Fang Hao entered. Then she introduced Fang Hao to the dwarves. "This is our lord, Fang Hao." Fang Hao looked at Belagar. Like the other dwarves, his limbs were extremely developed, and he wore gold and silver intertwined armor. The two huge horns on his helmet made him about as tall as Fang Hao. "Welcome, Chief Belagar." Fang Hao smiled and sat down in the main seat. A total of 10 dwarves came. Except for Belagar, who was sitting, the others stood behind him. The chair backs were slightly higher, blocking their view. Of course, Fang Hao didn't care about these things. If they wanted to stand behind, he was too lazy to manage. Belagar was even more confused when he saw the 3 people who came in. A human lord, an undead army. There were orcs, there were lizard men. This was simply insane. When did these completely unrelated races get together? Forming a territory. "My lord, I don't know why you called me here." Belagar didn't waste time with pleasantries and went straight to the point. "I heard that your situation and that of your subordinates are not very good." "No, this is absolutely slander. Commander Belagar, I have a very large territory that needs people to live and develop. Perhaps we can cooperate and live together on this land, have a better living environment, and at the same time, allow the subordinates who came out with you to have a better life." Fang Hao continued to speak calmly, even though Belagar strongly denied that his situation was not good. But Fang Hao still stated his proposal. "What do you mean?" Belagar frowned. "Very simple, join my territory. I will provide refuge for you and your subordinates, and you will work for me. You wish for me to be subservient to you, undead? You wish." Belagar roared loudly, his iron wire-like beard trembling slightly. "Don't be so quick to refuse. Do you want your subordinates to rely on scavenging in the barren battlefield for a living? Even if it can be maintained for a while, how long can it last?" Fang Hao took a sip of fruit wine and continued. "Autumn is here. Winter is coming. Why do you think the other dwarves of Eight Peaks Mountain let you go? They were waiting for you to freeze to death in winter, so they wouldn't have to do anything. Don't you want to reclaim everything you had and prove that you are not a failed chief?" Fang Hao spoke unhurriedly, but Belagar's face became increasingly ugly. He was still pretending, but he didn't expect the human in front of him to already know everything. Even clearly. "Who exactly are you? Why do you know about Eight Peaks Mountain?" For Fang Hao, it wasn't difficult to inquire about Eight Peaks Mountain. Connecting some scattered pieces of information, he could deduce a general idea. "I am just an ordinary lord. In my territory, undead, humans, orcs, and trolls all live together. If you join, I can guarantee that you will be safe and have sufficient food and clothing to keep you warm." Belagar fell silent. He couldn't say a word to refute the man in front of him, not even one. The other party was right. If they didn't have enough food stored and clothes to keep warm before winter, then as more than 1,000 people would just have to wait to die. How long could they survive by scavenging in the barren battlefield? "I need to think about it," Belagar said. "Okay, I'll give you time. I'll be here tomorrow morning, waiting for your answer." "Okay." Belagar replied, got up, and led his people out, until they were outside the city gate. Only then did Njia say, "These dwarves are so short. Didn't you just say something that was equal to not saying anything?" At this moment, Black Sword also walked in. "My lord, everything is ready. We can depart at any time." "Okay, let's go." "Yes, my lord."